Very good morning to you. 9 a.m. We are the Newsroom team. This is our Vice President. I'm Evan Jansen, and Kendall Mahamati is also with us, and we'll be with you until midday. Midday today, Elvis.
Yes, that's where we are today. And of course, you know, today is a big day. But before we get to that, we're focusing on education this morning.
Yeah, we have to, because the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Bladen Zamandi, he says his department now have to make provision for close to R1 billion worth of damages to university property as a result of the Fees Must Fall campaign of the last year, Elvis.
So the question that we pose to you is, how do you think we should recoup this R1 billion in damages at our tertiary institutions? That is the question. We'd like to find out from you on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page.
It's too easy to say government must pay. We are the government. That means we must pay, you and me. How do we recoup the money, and how do we stop burning and destroying infrastructure?
But we're also conducting a poll today. When I see me and you, we got some red going there.
Yeah.
People are celebrating Valentine's Day around the globe. But in Pakistan, they have banned Valentine's Day celebrations on the grounds that is not part of Muslim culture.
So this is what we ask you. Is Valentine's Day part of your culture? Should we ban it here in South Africa? Has it become just a commercial concern to relieve you of your hard-earned money after January?
Yes, to give all the shoppers a chance to go out and spend some money out there. So 54% of you are saying, no, it's not part of my culture, that one.
10% say yes, which in itself is a little bit concerning. And 36% say we don't care about this thing, man. This is a Western thing. We don't care. But you guys are tweeting us nonetheless. So let's have a look at what you are tweeting us. This one from Temba. He says, no, no, no. Valentine is not part of my culture.
Also says, I think it's part of our culture because that's the way we get to celebrate love. Well,
Valentine's Day
go.
Every day you should celebrate. No, Valentine is not part of our culture. It's meant for whites, not for blacks. I don't know anything about Valentine, says Lakasa, who's a regular on the Newsroom show.
This one from Richard says, nope, it ain't part of my culture. Well, that's Richard Pashur. It's probably from India or from Pakistan, where the ban was made.
Yeah,
not part
they
of my
banned
culture.
Valentine's Day in Pakistan. Should they ban it? Yeah, tweet us what you think. Should they ban Valentine's Day in South Africa? Is it just a thing that is meant to relieve us of our hard-earned money here after January, when things are a little bit slow for the shops? Anyhow, that's where we are with you today. Let's go and get the morning's news.
Forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan says the courts must deal with the police who arrested him yesterday afternoon. President Jacob Zuma will be back in Parliament again this afternoon for the debate of his State of the Nation address. And the Home Affairs Minister, Malusi Gigaba, has asked community leaders in Rosettenville to refrain from using violence as a means of communication following the raids in the area. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Mahamati what's happening on the sports front.
Gentlemen, good morning to you. You see, looking all good in your white, black and red. Very interesting that you...
Happy Valentine's Day. Okay.
Yeah. Same to you, same to you. Yeah, have fun with it. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
Oh, here we go. Chance for number 6. Is it going to be?
Mamelodi Sundowns are poised to climb into the absolute Premiership top 3 should they win tonight in Mdantsane against Chipa United. And Sergio Aguero proves his mettle as he comes off the bench to score, rocketing the Citizens to second on the log as 8 behind leaders Chelsea.
Knocked in by a delighted Sergio Aguero.
And the United States Justice Department sues disgraced cyclist Lance Armstrong for $100 million. All this will be bringing to you during the sports bulletin at about 10:40 or so. For now, it is back to Elvis who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Controversial private investigator Paul O'Sullivan has described his arrest by police as an intimidation tactic. O'Sullivan alleges that his arrest yesterday was a result of his investigations into the acting National Police Commissioner Komocho Paslani's R8 million house. Police released O'Sullivan after midnight following a successful High Court urgent application by O'Sullivan's legal team.
A 2016 High Court order saved Paul O'Sullivan from slipping behind bars. That order was granted by Deputy Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba. It states that police must give O'Sullivan 48 hours notice before any arrests. However, on Monday night, police ignored the order and locked up O'Sullivan. Later in court, police made a U-turn and agreed to release O'Sullivan.
1. The first, third, and fourth respondents shall release the applicant from detention before 23 hours 30 on 13 February 2017.
It should now be 24.
Well, we have said it. I'm sure they'll do that. 2. The application is removed from the roll.
The police's legal team argued that the order gave O'Sullivan special treatment. It wanted the court to amend the order. However, this was unsuccessful and O'Sullivan was released.
They are the people with the badges, and it is an intimidation tactic, and I will do what is necessary in terms of the law, and with AfriForum, hopefully we will re-establish some sort of control in this country.
O'Sullivan was kept behind bars for nearly 6 hours.
How are you doing? Good, how are you? Good, thanks. Good.
Rosettenville residents have justified the torching of 12 houses over the weekend. The residents told senior government and police officials that they are under siege from drug lords. A high-level government delegation, including the Home Affairs Minister Malusi Kigaba, called on community leaders to refrain from using violence as a means of communication. The delegation engaged with residents from violent-fueled areas, including Hillbrow, Yeoville and Rosettenville yesterday. A peace and security awareness campaign was launched to target the crime-ridden areas. Calm has now returned. The small mining town of Stilfontein near Klerksdorp in the northwest is in shock after 7 people, including children, were allegedly knocked down in 3 hit-and-run accidents. The community alleges that the accidents are linked to one driver who allegedly targeted his victims by bumping into them on the pavements. The suspect is expected to appear in court today.
This is one of 3 locations where unsuspecting children as young as 3 years old were stalked and mowed down by an unknown man in an unidentified vehicle. With scenes of children scattered like this, parents and neighbors are furious and want justice.
Let the law take its course. The car came after him and it hit him. It hit him right here.
Florence Mutekeshe is the only adult victim. She says she tried to avoid the car, but there was no escape.
I was walking by the pavement, and then the car was coming, facing me, and he went outside to my side. And then I wanted to turn to another side, and he bumped me.
Meanwhile, police in the province are investigating a case of reckless and negligent driving for the 3 accidents. A suspect has been arrested and is expected to appear in the Stilfontein Magistrate Court. Sintle English, SABC News, Stilfontein near Klerksdorp.
Violence broke out at the African National Congress Northern Cape Lekgotla, which had to be cancelled. Disgruntled party members disrupted the 2-day Lekgotla organized ahead of the provincial elective conference in March. The members say lists within the party have been rigged. They have called on the African National Congress National Executive Committee to intervene.
Cracks within the provincial ANC are starting to show. With the conference a few weeks away, members are throwing their weight behind preferred candidates. Provincial ANC Treasurer and Premier Silva Lucas is expected to go up against Provincial Secretary Zamani Saul for the position of chairperson during the conference. The party has condemned the behavior of members who stormed the Lekgotla.
We are not going to be intimidated by people who decide to come and disrupt our meetings. We are not going to be intimidated by the violence that will be leveled against us. We remain focused to ensure that the process is on track to have a provincial conference.
Members who disrupted the Lekgotla accuse senior party leaders of manipulating party processes.
In the Northern Cape, when we don't want you as the leadership, then you will not appear in any audited documents of the ANC. The provincial secretary of the ANC in this province does not have the title deed of the ANC. He is not going to continue as if he's not accountable. He's accountable to us.
Deployed ANC NEC member Mcebisi Skwacha says disagreements and infighting are part of most elections.
Conference elections bring tensions here in the Northern Cape and anywhere else, as you would be able to observe as we proceed towards the national conference.
The provincial Lekgotla is expected to reconvene later in the week. Neria Hlakotza, SABC News in Kimberley.
Parliament will this afternoon begin a two-day debate on the President's State of the Nation address delivered last Thursday. Political parties are expected to give their responses to the contents of the speech. But it is also likely that the chaos in Parliament before the Sona speech, including the removal of the EFF members from the chamber, will take centre stage. Parliament is meanwhile denied allegations that the South African Police Services helped eject the EFF MPs.
The EFF maintains these protection services members were in fact police officers and should never have been allowed inside the National Assembly. The DA says it too is investigating whether this is indeed the case. But Parliament has vehemently denied this.
We have sufficient capacity in terms of parliamentary protection services. We need no assistance from anyone else to be able to move members of parliament out of the facility. And therefore, any allegations to that effect are rejected by Parliament forthwith. And we are also making an appeal to anyone else who has contrary information to present that information or to bring that information as soon as possible.
Walela adds that Parliament's investigations into the events of that night are ongoing. The probe includes allegations of an unidentified substance in the public gallery. The report will be handed to presiding officers Bale Gambete and Thandi Modise on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the Hawks could not be reached for comment on how far the investigations are into a case of malicious damage to property opened by Parliament following similar scenes of violence in the precinct last year. Lukhanyo Khalada, SABC News, Parliament.
Meanwhile, the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee looking into the affairs of the SABC resumes its work today. On the agenda will be feedback from affected parties on the interim report sent to them for comment 2 weeks ago. The affected parties have 2 more days to comment before the February 16th deadline. Staying with the SABC, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications is yet to process the names of the 5 candidates to serve on its interim board. Its chairperson, Humphrey Maktakwana, says that parties are still finalizing the names of their preferred candidates. Once this is done, the names will be presented to the committee for further deliberation. Now, a court in Pakistan has banned the celebration of Valentine's Day on the grounds that it's not part of Muslim culture. The order prohibits all Valentine's Day-related festivities in public places. Valentine's Day is popular with many Pakistanis, but religious groups have protested against it in previous years, calling it immoral. Meanwhile, the Belgian chocolate shops are so prepared for Valentine's Day with special offers for shoppers and their loved ones that heart-shaped red and pink boxes and various kinds of chocolates fill the window displays in Brussels. Many chocolatiers, a supplier to Belgium royalty, sold 3 types of chocolate: roses, milk, dark and white chocolate to satisfy its customer taste. According to Belgium's chocolate industry body, Choprabisco, the country's 256 chocolate makers provided jobs to over 7,000 people in 2014, representing almost 11% of jobs in the Belgian food production sector. Well, it's Valentine's Day. Everybody's enjoying it and celebrating it. But the question that we pose to you on our poll today, right there, we're asking you, is it part and parcel of your culture? Let me take a look at what you have to say. That poll now standing at 191 votes. 54% of you here in South Africa are saying, and around the continent are saying, 54% are saying, no, it's not part of our culture. 36% say, we don't care about this thing. This is a Western thing, man. And 10% are saying, yes, it is part of our culture. 191 votes. You can still keep them coming. Vote on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But right now, let's start our conversation. Feasibility of fee-free education. Let's go over to Eben.
Yeah, Elvis, this Valentine's Day thing has got me stumped a little bit. But let's get serious. Of course, we're asking you the question. It's going to pop up on screen now. And we heard what the Higher Education Minister said about R1 billion that's been, well, burnt away on our campuses. That's due to damages at tertiary institutions. Let's have a look first, before we start, with what you guys are tweeting us with regards to how do you recoup this money? Well, Kagisum Singha says it's only the increased tuition fees and some of the portion helping on the mess created. In the end, we all pay for it. It's as simple as that. Now, Lorenzo comes and he says, as a student myself, I know how hard it is to live in the current South Africa. Our government officials steal money every day, so why not free education? Lorenzo, that's a very strong statement. One needs evidence in order to make these kinds of allegations, Lorenzo. That's how it works. Now, the Commission of Inquiry into the feasibility of free higher education is continuing with its public hearings. The Fees Commission, chaired by Judge Jonathan Hare, was established last year by President Jacob Zuma to investigate the feasibility of free higher education and training. Now, during representations at the Fees Commission, the DA, Shadow Minister of Higher Education and Training, Professor Belinda Bozzoli, opposed students' call for free higher education. Now, to talk about the DA's representations and then the students' call for free higher education, we are joined by Busisiwe Siabe, who's one of the activists of the Fees Must Fall movement. Very good morning to you, Busi. Thanks
good morning
for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
Now, first up, we saw yesterday the Higher Education Minister said there's a hole of R1 billion on campuses and so forth, and somehow we need to find a way to recoup the money. How do you guys think about that as the student movement?
At this point in time, we honestly believe he cannot blame students for the R1 billion that has supposedly been spent on campuses. The minister, along with our institutions of higher learning and management, agreed to allow things like police onto our campuses, to allow private security onto our campuses, which meant that students needed to be militant in response to the violence that we were receiving. So if you're finding buildings have been burnt, if you're finding windows have been broken, it has only been where students were defending themselves against such authorities, against such violence on our institutions, and that's where a bulk of the money is coming from. So essentially, he cannot blame the R1 billion on students, and we recognize what he's trying to do also at the Durban University of Technology, by keeping someone like Bonginkosi Khanyile, who's the only surviving political prisoner of our generation, in prison, by claiming that he has cost the state over 600 million on its own. That is absolutely ridiculous. There is no such thing as one individual or a collective of individuals who have maintained their peaceful form of protest being responsible for such an amount of money.
Do you condemn the burning of things like libraries and the like, though?
I wouldn't say condemn. I understand more than anything. There's something liberating about fire. There's a sort of rebirthing that comes from fire. But one thing that we have strived to do as Fees Must Fall is that we have maintained our non-violent approach. We've maintained that we will not burn buildings. We will not aggravate the police or private security. But when we have to defend ourselves in that instance, we will be militant but not violent.
What do you make then of the DA's opposition to free higher education across the board?
I mean, of course, it's something that would come from the DA. The DA is sitting at a position of privilege at the moment. The DA represents, to a large extent, the middle class of this country. And even though you find a large constituency of black people voting in the DA and being part of the DA, you understand that those black people are willing to indebt themselves to banks, to loan sharks, in order to pay for something like education. Whereas the majority of the country, which is poor, does not have, that ability, cannot indebt themselves. So the DA stance on free education is something that is well expected. I mean, when you look at the political history of the DA itself, it is a merger of a lot of apartheid parties that came through, from the Unionist Party to other parties as well that came and consolidated together. We can understand that they wouldn't understand what a call for free, quality, decolonized education is, because also it threatens their membership. Because once black people are aware and they're conscious of their history and also the history of the DA, no sound black person would ever vote for the DA.
The Fees Commission, set up by the President just over a year ago, to come up with solutions in the space of, call it the tertiary education sector. What do you make of the work thus far?
I mean, we want to take the Fees Commission very seriously. We want to as students. But this is like the third, fourth Fees Commission that the President or presidents since Tata Mandela have set up. So essentially, we don't have faith in the Commission, but we're willing to engage with them to see what kind of, proposals we could come up with. Because as Fees Must Fall, we have constructed our own model on how to fund free, quality, decolonized education. And in the process of this Fees Commission, we expect to be seated there with them. We expect to actually head those discussions as opposed to the Fees Commission themselves sitting independently and making decisions. It is only when students themselves are actively involved in the Fees Commission where we can give our recommendations that we will be able to take the Fees Commission seriously.
Will we see more Fees Must Fall protests this year?
I mean, on a matter of strategy and tactics, there will always be resistance. Where there is oppression, there will be resistance, and that is something that we will maintain as Fees Must Fall. We may not protest in their organic forms of protest, as you've seen in the past 2 years, but we will be engaging the state, but especially the private sector this year, to say that they need, not only as ABSA is about to pay back their reparations, but other companies as well need to come to the forefront. If it means that companies must be taxed, we're coming for the private sector as well, because we understand that our struggle is not against institutions. It's not with Wits University, it's not with the University of Cape Town, but it is essentially with the state and the public sector and the private sector as well, and that's something that we're going to engage on. We have already started in some provinces, to just bring a bit of a highlight as to what Fees Must Fall is going to bring this year, especially with the accommodation crisis that is happening across the country. You've seen in the Western Cape, some universities have already shut down, asking for accommodation for students so that we can all just settle in. But what Fees Must Fall will be doing for the remainder of the year is we're going to consolidate the ground, we're going to go into communities and mobilize there, and you might just see us come up earlier than you would expect us. So
in conclusion, what does free education, free decolonized education, mind you, quality, free decolonized education, what does that look like for my child who's 10 years old? What it looks like for your child is if your child wants to go into, for an example, the health sciences faculty, they will be able to get an indigenous kind of education system, a curriculum that is rooted in our indigenous people, that is rooted in our culture and our heritage as people. They will get an education that says even sangomas and gomas are welcome within our curriculum. We need to be able to learn how we were able to progress as individuals outside of the westernized medicine that we know. When you go into the Faculty of Humanities, you'll find people who are able to understand, interpret, and also challenge ideologically their history, not only their history, but the things that they're studying as well. You're looking at people who will be able to reconstruct the economy. We're looking at people who will be able to reconstruct the law, because we must remember the law that we're abiding by at the moment is a law that was set up by our colonizers, by the people who ran the apartheid system. We need to see and we need to reinvent education. We need to reinvent the concept of education, and that's what you can expect your 10-year-old to learn in the next 10 years. You've got a long struggle ahead of you, my dear. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure. That's Busisiwe Siabe talking to us about the Fees Must Fall movement and quality, free, decolonized education, as well as the Fees Commission. Tweet us what you think on our question of the day, mind you, and that is, of course, how do we recoup the money? The money that's been burnt, that's been damaged and vandalized on our campuses this year. And do you think we can afford another year like we've had the last couple of years? At SABC Newsroom is where you can tell us what you think. Let's now move on and take a look at the main trends on social media at this hour. Of course, it's Valentine's Day, and we are all supposed to be in love today. So for all the lovers out there, but of course there are many more commercial celebrations taking place around the world. The mockery of the day can be seen in the countless memes. Now, this image speaks for itself. If you don't get this, you'll have to catch up on the ridiculous trends. And then the signboard outside a restaurant says, Happy Valentine's Day. Bring your girlfriend, 20% off. Bring your wife, 45% off. Bring both at the same time, and it's free. Free transport to the hospital, it says. Yeah, interesting. Everyone's a comedian on social media. Anyhow, it's not all about sloppy kisses and red roses. Locally, people are remembering Riva Steenkamp today. Of course, she was shot and killed by Oscar Pistorius on this day. It's now 4 years ago. Then, in Pakistan, a court has banned any public Valentine's festivities and displays of affection, as it's not part of Muslim culture. A balloon seller was arrested by police earlier in the day. There you see the picture of his balloons, the red and white balloons, going to prison with him. Anyhow, Donald Trump and President Jacob Zuma yesterday held a teleconference. Yes, the bilateral trade agreements were discussed in the official statement. Elsewhere in the world, Tignes in France experienced an avalanche. Now, the hashtag Tignes avalanche is how you can interact with it. Then there are also, of course, people talking about Grammy Award winner. He's hashtag Chance the Rapper, who has yet to sign a record deal, yet he has won this prestigious award. Interesting. Most of my hip-hop friends didn't even know who this guy was. So, we move on. Our picture of the day now. This one comes from the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump himself. And it's captioned, @Real Donald Trump. He says, played golf with the Prime Minister Abe of Japan and the Big Easy, Ernie Els. And we had a great time. He says, Japan is very well represented. There you see the picture of the Donald with the Big Easy. Let's take a look now at a comment of the day. This one comes from Renee Cummings @NaiveMoon, who says, this Valentine's Day, try celebrating the people in your life who are honest, loving, caring and kind. The people who show you their souls. There you go, keep it real, they say, on this Valentine's Day. Now, of course, what's very real is Valentine's Day. The courts are also in session. Let's go down to Cape Town, where the former Western Cape Police Commissioner, Arno Lamour, as he's called, is expected to appear in the High Court there for a pre-trial hearing. Lamour and 4 co-accused, they face 109 charges of corruption, racketeering and money laundering. Lamour and 3 other co-accused, including 2 senior police officials, were arrested 2 years ago after allegedly receiving money and gifts from a Cape Town businessman. Still in the Cape, a 27-year-old woman accused of trying to kill her own child will appear in the Gaelicha Magistrates Court on the Cape Flats. Police spokesperson Frederick van Wyk says the suspect was arrested at De Doorns near Worcester in the Boland region, where she'd been hiding since the alleged incident. We'll keep you updated on these stories, but first we'll take a break. After the break, we'll talk to the DA about why they're against overall free tertiary education. Don't go away.
Free higher education for the poor, much as it is at the moment. And then we support a graded system of partial support for students who are in the middle level and in the upper level. And then students who can afford to pay for higher education, we don't think should be given free education.
What came out, it sounds like as if you are not supporting education, and that is incorrect, because as you just indicated, it's a graded system that you support. But what is the sort of solution for South Africa's higher education here in South Africa?
Well, we've put forward a plan which says that for an additional 20 billion a year, about twice as many students can be supported, and at the same time, higher education institutions can get an increased subsidy. Because our analysis of the causes of the situation says that the whole reason why it's arisen is because subsidies have gone down over the last 20 years and student numbers have gone up. So while 20 years ago per student head 20,000 was being spent, it's now 15,000. And that is why fees have gone up, to compensate for the missing funding that the state is no longer giving universities. So we believe it has to be quite a complex solution, additional funding for universities and a tiered system for students.
But isn't that currently what government does have in place in terms of their tier system? And they've even made it open more for sort of the missing middle students that accommodate them as well.
They don't quite have a tiered system. Their new proposal will put forward a graded system, which is similar to a tiered system, but unbelievably complex to implement. And we're worried about that. So we're putting forward a very simple system, 3 tiers. You're either very poor, you get all the money. You're a little bit better off, you get 2/3 of the money. And you're a little bit better off, you get 1/3 of the money, and then you're wealthy and you get no money.
What can we expect then from the Fees Commission, which is currently underway?
Well, I very much hope the Fees Commission takes to heart our point about more government subsidy for universities. It's no use just giving money to students. Not all of it goes to universities. Many students don't get government money, and they don't ever pay their fees, and so they go into debt. So unless more money is given to the universities themselves, this ratcheting of fees up every year is going to continue.
What about NSFAS, the National Students Financial Aid Scheme? Is that not a viable option?
NSFAS needs to be fundamentally revamped. You know, it's quite an old institution now, and I think it's pretty dated. It's become very convoluted in what it does and inefficient. And I would suggest, we suggest, a revamp of NSFAS and a reopening of a new scheme.
If it's a new scheme, would they need more money?
Yes. We believe an additional 20 billion for both NSFAS and the additional subsidy would make an enormous difference. It wouldn't cover all costs for everybody, which is what we think is unaffordable. We estimate that will cost 60 billion. And we don't think that's affordable, and we think government has to have other priorities as well, such as health. And so we're putting forward what we think is a more modest proposal of an additional 20 billion.
Students did indicate, student movements, that they will not stop until they get a fee-free education. Your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are that that is actually quite a minority of students now. Most students, I think, want to get back to work and want a viable, doable solution that works. The smaller minority who want full fee-free education, I think, is shrinking. It might make a lot of noise again this year, but I don't think it's the majority of students.
Will it ever be resolved then, Professor, you think?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens this year. My sense is that there will be protests this year, but they may not be of the scale that they were in previous years.
Well, that interview we recorded yesterday, of course, with the Democratic Alliance's Shadow Minister for Higher Education, Professor Belinda Bozzoli. Well, you've heard what she said. They don't believe, or they believe it'll be too expensive. Well, in the end, apologies for that once again. Anyhow, we're asking you the question of the day. The question of the day today deals with the damage that's been caused during the Fees Must Fall protest at universities. It's more than R1 billion, and it's not just universities, it's all tertiary institutions. So let's have a look at your comments. How do we recoup this more than R1 billion in damages? We heard from the students earlier. Well, they think they couldn't help themselves, they say. Let's have a look at what you guys are tweeting us with regards to this. Dare to Zlatan says, insurance maybe. Yeah, no, the insurance industry will not be happy with you, Stembiso. Kolani Ngwegazi says, Newsroom, our government must make education a priority. Zuma's government must help the universities. Well, they are helping the universities. Who do you think is paying all these billions, Kolani? It's not falling out of the sky. Bantu says, as a graduate, it's hard to survive in South Africa. Lorenzo says, there's no clear dialogue between students in university. I don't condone violence, but I also don't condone corruption, says Lorenzo. Kagiso says, it's only the increased tuition fees and some of the portion helping turn the mess around. Kagiso, the DA says it's going to cost 60 billion. 60 billion. Yes, to have free tertiary education. Those are your tweets. Keep it coming. We'd love to hear from you. Let's now take a look at the front pages from around the globe. We'll start in New York, where the Wall Street Journal reports that the White House is exploring a new tactic to discourage China from undervaluing its currency to boost exports, part of an evolving Trump administration strategy to challenge the practices of the US's largest trading partner while stepping back from direct confrontation. Then the Financial Times reports that General Michael Flynn has resigned as Trump's national security advisor after weeks of speculation over his links to Russia turned into days of reporting on the contents of his call with the Russian ambassador and a day of intense pressure over whether the president could continue to back his pick. Finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu landed in Washington for his first meeting with Donald Trump amid calls by right-wing members of his government to annex part, if not all, of Area C of the West Bank, otherwise known as Judea and Samaria. Now, let's take a look at what's happening on Facebook. That's our page. Rosettenville residents have justified the torching of 12 houses there over the weekend. They told senior government and police officials that they are under siege from drug lords. Then we also see the city of Cape Town has once again appealed to residents and business to save water as dam levels across the Western Cape have now dropped to around 36% on average. Finally, Transport Minister Dipo Peters has dismissed reports that she has issued notices with the intent to dismiss 4 airports company board members. Peters says the move is in line with the Airports Company Act, which allows for rotational retirement. All of those and more on our Facebook page. Just go to this page, like it. We like it if you like it, and then you can get all the latest in your feeds. Now, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, well, we'll talk a little bit more about free tertiary education. Don't go away.
We make sure to be where news is happening,
both locally and globally. For the latest business news, stay with us.
From South Africa to the world, we've got all your latest sporting news.
Don't miss our weather updates at every hour. Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
Welcome back. We continue our discussion on the feasibility of fee-free education. Now, the Department of Higher Education and Training announced last year that the 2017 university fee increment would be capped at 8%. Meanwhile, the Fees Commission, which looks into the feasibility of free higher education, is continuing And while making representations at the Fees Commission, the Democratic Alliance's Shadow Minister of Higher Education and Training, Professor Belinda Bozzoli, you heard her earlier, said that the party opposed students' calls for free higher education for all. Now, to talk to us about a fees must fall movement and other things, we are now joined by Ramaphala Ramachosa from the Higher Education Transformation Network. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
First and foremostly, what's your take on the DA's suggestion that there should be no free education for all? It must be a graded system.
Yes, you know, our position as the network has always been that free higher education should be for the poor and the marginalized. We are of the view that the moment that free higher education is being given to everyone, even those people from the rich families would be in a position to can now access this free higher education without paying anything. We know that as a country, there is still a huge difference between the poor and the rich, and we also know that as the status quo is that the rich are the ones who are able to access education. I mean, from the primary level until the universities, they are getting the best education that they want, whereas the poor and the marginalized are always in the periphery. So we believe that the starting point for free higher education should be for the poor, as we believe that it would be the tool that will be marginalizing them, and I mean, it would be the tool that would be releasing them from the periphery, and it will be the tool that will be liberating them.
So you agree with the graded system where the poor and the missing middle are provided free education, but the rich must pay. But what do you say to those student movements that are suggesting that free education for all?
You see, the call for free education for all, if we look at it at a realistic point of view, it's not possible for these particular reasons. To say, the moment you then say, let's give free higher education to everyone, you are then saying to those people who have got resources that you can relax. I mean, you would find a situation whereby these children from rich families, when they get to institutions of higher learning like they are doing now, they are already driving these beautiful cars, they have got flats, and the poor, rest of the poor are still struggling. Now we are saying, as a point of departure, let the poor, rest of the poor and the marginalized be the one who are receiving free higher education.
Are you confident that the Fees Commission will come with a system that will benefit all?
You see, the Fees Commission has to do, it has seen, and the submissions that has been made to it are the submissions that says we want free higher education at our lifetime. Now, anything that would be deviating from that particular call would be something that the Fee Commission has just created on its own, because if it's a commission that is listening to the stakeholders, it would then express itself through its recommendations on what the majority of people have said there. And the majority people, what they are saying is that we want free higher education. And we are saying, as a country, ultimately we can realize free higher education, more so for the poor and the marginalized.
But the key word there is ultimately, not immediately.
Look, what is going to happen is that our government has shown that the concept of free higher education is possible. I mean, remember, in academic year 2016, the Minister of Higher Education and the President announced that there would not be any fee increment.
Yes.
Now the fees have been kept. So we are saying that it's progress, you know, it's one step at a time. But ultimately, we are, you know, patiently waiting for the Fees Commission to express itself.
Have you made recommendations to the Fees Commission?
You know, our recommendations are there, and we have said that we believe in this free higher education as a network. Yes.
Moving forward, what sort of model are you proposing to the Fees Commission? Exactly what we discussed, or was there more?
You know, what we have said to the Fees Commission is that, look, let us, as a point of departure, concentrate on these particular people who are the poorest of the poor. And we have said, how then do we get money to fund these people? We have said that there are people who have been funded by NSFAS until the stage who are graduates. Let those people pay back the money that they have been given. Second, we have said that the skills development levy has always been 1%. Let it be increased to 2%. And finally, we have said that the biggest people who are benefiting from students who are from institutions of higher learning is private sector. Most of the students go to private sector. Let private sector now start to contribute towards a free higher education.
In closing, what would be your predictions when the Fees Commission finally made their report known?
Our prediction is that the Fees Commission would say, come 2018, children from poor background, those who have been marginalized for a very long time, are going to enjoy their manna, and their manna would be free higher education.
Mr. Ramatosa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Was Ramaphala Ramatosa. He's very optimistic from the Higher Education Transformation Network, talking to us about the Fees Commission and the Fees Must Fall movement and what do they expect. We'll take a short break and we won't take a break. We'll go right after this to Eben and to continue with our program.
Yeah, we've been asking you the question, of course, and the question on your screen has been that one around the damage that's been caused during the struggle for free education. How do we recoup the R1 billion? Yes, that was announced by the Higher Education Minister. R1 billion in damages at our tertiary institutions have been called. How do we recoup the money? Let's have a look at what you guys are telling us. How do we recoup the cash? Dare to Zlatan, he comes and he talks about our DA are undermining the students. Of course, the DA is saying they don't think it's possible overall free higher education. Lutando says, Newsroom, yes, provided only 20% of students takes the university path and the remaining takes vocational training. Yes, varsity ain't for anyone is the hashtag that Lutendo is putting forward. We seem to have that obsession here in South Africa. Actually, some of the how do we recoup the money? Debt is Zlatan Stembiso. He says, insurance maybe. Nope, I don't think the insurance industry will be very happy with that, Zlatan. Well, that's where we leave or park the discussion around fees. Now, let's move to the US. An interesting sports story that's developing. We thought we'd talk about it because there's so many different angles to it. The US Justice Department has accused Lance Armstrong of defrauding the government by accepting millions of dollars in sponsorship money from the US Postal Service as he led the team to a string of 4 Tour de France titles, while, of course, he was doping. Now, that, of course, opens a completely different can of worms, as it were. And I've got Kendall Mahamati here with me. Kendall, just tell us the thinking around them wanting to recoup $100 million US. That's nearly 1.5 billion rand from Lance Armstrong.
It's all to do with the sponsorships that he got through the US Postal Services, because they were his main sponsor, amongst others like Trek, the cycle maker, Nike as well. But the US Justice Department is actually like chasing after him because he's actually done so much to defraud them. They've done so much to defraud them that they're very interested in making sure that they get their money back that was paid to him by the U.S. Postal Services, because he was their main guy for a very long time. And it's, his net worth is about $125 million right now. Right now.
It's interesting, though. For me, though, how can you recoup money once it's a sponsorship, right? So a sponsorship says, we'll pay you X and you must return eyeballs. That's what they call it in the industry, right?
100%.
So they have now gone and through 7 Tour de France's or however many it is, they have got their return on their investment. He wasn't paid to win. He was paid to wear their name on the jersey. And they got the TV time. They got the exposure. Surely you can't ask for the money back.
The reason why they gave that guy the money is because he was a winner. And I think
but they got the mileage.
They got the mileage, but they also got the damage when his moral compass was found to be wrong.
Let's talk about this, though.
Yes.
So if this goes ahead and it sets a precedent, that means that any sports person or celebrity, for that matter, that steps out of the breach is liable to pay their sponsors back, or not even just their sponsors, to pay whoever takes care of them, pay them back if they're not happy with what happens.
Absolutely. We're talking about the Nesta Carters of this world, the Savinovas of this world. Absolutely. We're talking about that. Yes, it does create that precedent, Evan.
Which could really change the world of sports sponsorship, and it could really I mean, it could really put a big financial hole in the sporting
I think
world.
what it does do, though, it puts pressure on the sponsors, on the Nikes of the world, to make sure that their athletes are above board. You remember that Nike, for example, stood by Lance Armstrong for the longest time while he was under accusation of doping. It was not proven. He eventually admitted to it. And then only after a long time did Nike say, yes, you're right, we're going to back off this,
so it's
this
a little
athlete.
bit...
So basically, it's going to put pressure right back to
So
the
it's a little
sponsors.
bit rich to now take the moral high ground, isn't it?
Absolutely. However, they're going after him, and I'm sure they'll get it.
What do you think about it? I say good luck to them because I think it will change the dynamic of the sporting world altogether if he has to pay back the money. Should Lance Armstrong pay back the money is what we ask you. I don't know what Tsetse Manare is talking. He's still busy doing his business at the back there while you're in shop. Morning to you. Tsetse, would you think he should pay back the money?
Yes, he should. Actually, all of it. And I'm glad that they stripped him all of his titles because now it shows that every other athlete that thinks of doping will think of the consequences. So,
well,
yeah.
they're being caught for doping left, right and centre as we speak right now, of course. Caster Semenya has just got a gold medal because they've taken it off a Russian athlete. So is it a scourge we'll ever get out of sport? I don't know. Something has to be done. Let's see what happens in this specific court case. Thanks, Kendall. Thanks for always coming in and dealing with the tough issues in the world of sport. Let's go over to Tsetse Manare now. Hopefully he's not bringing us more flooding.
Hello there, welcome from the weather desk. Now I've got something interesting to show you, which is happening just here in the central part of the Mozambican channel. The Dineo is making her way down towards, closer towards South Africa, a tropical cyclone. So it's bringing a lot more rainfall towards Madagascar and possibly also towards the southern part of Mozambique and maybe even into Limpopo province. So yeah, it is almost a tropical cyclone. So we just need to keep our eyes out for that. And as you can see, it's moving closer and closer towards Mozambique. And hopefully it does not come with any devastating consequences from the northern parts, especially with flooding that we are expecting towards Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and possibly into Limpopo province. But in terms of rainfall, it's basically business as usual. Lots of rain towards the east and dry weather towards the west. Nothing happening for the Western Cape province and over the Northern Cape province, except maybe for high temperatures. If you're going to be in Madagascar, along the coastal areas, lots and lots of rainfall also expected because of that low pressure cell there. Like I said, it's already been named and it's basically reaching a tropical cyclone status. And temperatures this afternoon, it's going to be quite a hot one for Dar and Uppington, 33 and 39. And Springbok is at 31 degrees, 27 for Cape Town. The Western Cape would be a lovely place to go and celebrate Valentine's Day if you are into that. Otherwise, it's going to be quite rainy for Mbombela and Polokwane for the next couple of days up until about the Thursday. Temperature-wise, up north of Mozambique, it's getting hotter as well. And some of these temperatures are quite scary, just thinking about how the planet is getting warmer and warmer, and these temperatures are not getting any cooler. Gaborone, it's been 34 for quite a long time now, so it's not getting a break, showing that even in drier periods, in the winter period, it might remain a bit warmer than usual along those parts. Kigali, 26. Take a look at Banjul, now at 40 degrees. Libreville is at 33, lots of rainfall for the northern parts into Addis Ababa. Well, if you compare it to what's happening along the central part, it's not a lot. But if you compare it to previous data, there hasn't been a lot of rainfall for Addis Ababa. So now it's just continuously receiving rainfall. Juba is at a maximum of 36 and 31 for Mogadishu. Mombasa around 32 degrees. A bit of a hot day is expected for Central Africa and for the northern parts along the border with much of the European countries there. It is expected to be quite cold, especially towards the Strait of Gibraltar. Temperatures dropping to single digits, some of them even receiving a lot more rainfall. If you look at Egypt, partly cloudy skies are expected along the northern parts. 6 degrees only for Baghdad, yeah, quite chilly. Damascus is at 13. 27 for Mecca. They're experiencing a bit of cooler conditions there, so it's looking like it's getting a lot better. Agadez is at 31, Tripoli into the lower 20s, upper teens for Algiers, Tunis and Rabat, and we're expecting those cooler conditions to persist for the next couple of days. That's it from the weather. There should be more later. Stay tuned.
this Ford Cougar thing is becoming a hot potato for them, excuse the pun.
US carmaker Ford has finally admitted that a fault is causing some of its Ford Cougar SUVs to catch fire, and
it also formally issued a recall in South Africa.
Ford needs to take accountability.
We'll work with our dealers and try to come up with a way that satisfies them.
Welcome back, everybody. Very good morning. If you've just joined us, this is the Newsroom show. I'm with Kendall Machamati. Morning, Kendall.
A very good morning to you.
Yep, nice.
Quite a lot happening today. I know a lot of people are celebrating Valentine's Day, but there's also a whole lot of news on the cards.
Yeah, before we get to the Valentine's Day thing, because we've been running a poll on it, it's very interesting coming out of it. But if you watched the previous hour, of course, our focus was on the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Blade Nzimande, who says that his department now to make provision for close to R1 billion worth of damages to university property as a result of the fees must fall protests of the last year. So that's the question we've put up. You guys are tweeting us. Let's just have a look what you guys have been telling us with regards to our question of the day. How do we recoup the money? Is it taxpayers that have to pay? Me and you? Kendall, do we pay? What does the prophet say?
The prophet has got his opinion is that we spend money on supporting the wrong lifestyles instead of education. ARVs for irresponsible people who can't keep their zips up.
Oh, it's Valentine's Day, my friend. That's it's interesting take on that. Mr. Robot says, Newsroom, if it were possible, they should make education free for South African students only. Foreign students should pay. Is that xenophobic? Is that xenophobic?
It's an interesting take, though.
It's a little bit of xenophobia, isn't it?
But it's in the hat. Lutendo says, yes, provided only 20% of students take university path and the remaining take vocational. Varsity ain't for everyone.
We need more artisans. We need more artisans. We need people who can make things with their hand. We need people who can build things. Not everyone can be a lawyer or a doctor.
I agree.
Or a journalist.
No, absolutely. We need plumbers. We need people that can make things, bricklayers and that sort of thing.
And if you put a little bit of business behind it, you could probably make a lot more money than me and Kendall who are eking out a living here. Anyhow, it's Valentine's Day today. Now, a court in Pakistan, they banned Valentine's Day celebrations in that country on the grounds that it's not part of Muslim culture. So we're asking you the question today. Here in South Africa, Kendall,
is Valentine's Day part of your culture? Let's see what's been said.
58 people have now voted on this thing, so people are really interested in this question. Only 11% say yes, it's part of our culture and we should celebrate it.
Whereas 54% say no, it's not part of their culture, and 35% say really, I don't care.
Don't care about Valentine's Day. Where's the love? Where is the love? Isn't that what we should be asking? Anyhow, Claudia comes in, she says, Newsroom, culture is a way of life that is accepted by everyone. We all express love every day, so love is a culture. Beautiful, Claudia.
And Tsepo comes in with, today we mourn Riva. I'll take a moment for that one. My prayers and thoughts are with the Steenkamp family and not across borders. Have a blessed Riva Day.
Tyron Ferndale says, Newsroom, not part of our culture. It must feel like Valentine's Day each and every day for your loved one. Tyron, change the world with that.
And Lorenzo comes in with, I know some girls that will be angry for days if the boyfriend don't spoil them on Valentine's Day, which is utterly ridiculous.
Lorenzo, I'm trying that tactic today. I think I might be in for a bit of stick tonight.
Stefano also comes in with, no, it's not part of my culture, but I celebrate it anyway.
Yeah, I think that's kind of that's the take that most people have on it.
Yeah,
it's not part of my culture. It's not part of what we do, but we'll celebrate anyway. The shops will love you for it nonetheless. 100 Rand a rose is what a man wanted to charge me late yesterday. That's why I'm not celebrating Valentine's Day today, but that's on a deeply personal level. Anyhow, Kendall, we've got a lot of work to do. Let's get into the headlines. Forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan says the courts must deal with the police who arrested him yesterday afternoon. President Jacob Zuma will be back in Parliament again this afternoon for the debate of his State of the Nation address. Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba has asked community leaders to refrain from using violence as a means of communication following raids in Rosettenville in Gauteng. Well, those are our top stories here on the Newsroom show right now. Let's get an update from Kendall on the sports desk.
Thank you very much, Evan. I think, you know what, judging by a couple of those tweets that we got just now about Valentine's Day, I think I'm going to do the wise thing and stay out of trouble, make sure my wife's happy and get her what she wants.
Yeah, Let's do that.
Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. Oh, here we go. Chance for number 6. Is it going to be?
Mamelodi Sundowns are poised to climb into the Absa Premiership's top 3 should they win tonight in Mdantsane against Chipa United. Sergio Aguero proves his mettle as he comes off the bench to score, rocketing the Citizens to second on the log, just 8 behind leaders Chelsea.
And it's knocked in by a delighted Sergio Aguero.
And of course, the United States Justice Department sues disgraced cyclist Lance Armstrong for $100 million. All this and more I've got for you later on the Sports Bulletin. For now, it is back to Evan who's got the news.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kendall. Time now for us to take a look at our top story at this hour. Controversial private investigator Paul O'Sullivan has described his arrest by police as an intimidation tactic. O'Sullivan alleges that his arrest yesterday was a result of his investigations into acting National Police Commissioner Khomotso Patlane's R8 million house. Police released O'Sullivan after midnight following a successful High Court urgent application by O'Sullivan's legal team.
A 2016 High Court order saved Paul O'Sullivan from slipping behind bars. That order was granted by Deputy Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba. It states that police must give O'Sullivan 48 hours notice before any arrests. However, on Monday night, police ignored the order and locked up O'Sullivan. Later in court, police made a U-turn and agreed to release O'Sullivan.
1. The first, third and fourth respondents shall release the applicant from detention before 23 hours 30 on 13 February 2017.
It should now be 24.
Well, we have said it. I'm sure they'll do that. 2. The application is removed from the roll.
The police's legal team argued that the order gave O'Sullivan special treatment. It wanted the court to amend the order. However, this was unsuccessful and O'Sullivan was released.
They are the people with the badges, and it is an intimidation tactic, and I will do what is necessary in terms of the law, and with AfriForum, hopefully we will re-establish some sort of control in this country.
O'Sullivan was kept behind bars for nearly 6 hours.
Rosettenville residents have justified the torching of 12 houses over the weekend. They told senior government and police officials that they are under siege from drug lords. A high-level government delegation, including Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba, called on community leaders to refrain from using violence as a means of communication. The delegation engaged with residents from violent fuel areas, including Hillbrow, Yeoville and Rosettenville yesterday. A peace and security awareness campaign was launched to target these crime-ridden areas. Calm has now returned there. Gun violence is a leading cause of death here in South Africa. According to the 2015-16 crime statistics, 16 people are shot and killed every single day, although there's been a significant reduction in gun deaths since the introduction of stricter gun laws in South Africa. Gun-Free South Africa believes there are still far too many guns in circulation with too many gun deaths. Now, from our studios here in Johannesburg, we are joined by Adele Kirsten, the Director of Gun-Free South Africa. Good morning to you, Adele. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Evan, and hello to the listeners.
16 gun deaths still per day in South Africa. Why is that?
There are a number of reasons. One is easy availability of guns. I think secondly is that people believe that guns are a means of safety. And we can look right from our SONA address right through to guns in our homes, is that people are under the false impression that guns bring security and safety. And all the research shows, both here and elsewhere in the world, that guns are a risk. They're a risk particularly, and this is important on a day like today, on Valentine's Day, they're a risk particularly for women in the home. Most women are in fact killed by an intimate partner rather than a stranger.
Yeah, that is seriously scary. Tell us a little bit about illegal firearms and the problem we have with illegal firearms. We see, of course, that gangs are being supplied at times by former police officers and so forth. All these illegal firearms, the problem that we have, and then how we come to terms with that.
Okay. So the important thing to remember is that most guns, 99% of guns, start off their life as a legal weapon. And so you need to mop up the illegal guns, but you also need to turn off the tap. And there's evidence that guns leak from the legal pool really in three ways: loss and theft from the police, or corrupt practices, as we've seen in the case with Colonel Prinsloo. Loss and theft from civilians. In South Africa, we lose between 18 to 22 guns a day, loss and theft. And that's the majority are civilians, but it includes the military and SAPs. And then, of course, there is some cross-border trade. So those are the three main sources of illegal weapons. What needs to happen, and it's a very doable, it's sort of a central feature, if you will, of SAPS's work, is to mop up the illegal weapons. And they've done relatively well over the last couple of months. We see that over the festive period, SAPS recovered just over 1,000 weapons. That's good, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and there are many, many more out there. But something we're doing right, because in the last 20 years, since 1998, in 1998 we had 34 gun deaths a day in South Africa. Now we're down to 16 gun deaths a day in South Africa. What are we doing right, and what do we need to do more of?
Okay. So what we're doing right is that we introduced stricter gun laws in 2000, which did a number of things. It raised the bar for legal gun ownership. Essentially, it made it more difficult for people to get guns. It also took an evidence-based approach which said which are the guns that are creating the most problem, and those are handguns. So it restricted handgun ownership to one per person for self-defense. And that's where we need to do more. Is we anticipate that there will be an amendment to the Firearms Control Act this year. And for Gun Free South Africa, this is an opportunity to say, of those 16 gun deaths, including, in fact, the data shows that 4 to 6 people are injured from those who are killed. So what guns are being used? What are the guns that Prinsloo was pushing into the Western Cape? What are those guns? What are the guns that are doing the killing? What are the guns that are being used in intimate partner violence, in robbery, in business robbery, in car hijacking? Those are the guns that we need to restrict further. And the evidence is that it's handguns. So for Gun Free South Africa, severely restricting access to handguns is one way to further strengthen our gun law.
I want to talk about guns in the home, because guns in the home are very dangerous. I've never owned a gun myself, and I've never had any incidents with a weapon because of that. So I would like to think that I'm a case in point that guns do kill in the end. Where does this culture or the idea in South Africa that we have that guns mean safety, where does that come from? Or security?
I think it's a global phenomenon, but I think it's particularly heightened in South Africa. I think there's a long history of seeing guns as a means of solving problems, but also there's some quite strong cultural attachment to guns as part of what it means to grow up, which might include something like hunting. But I would say, and certainly during the apartheid era, the laws were geared to facilitate gun ownership amongst whites. I don't know, I mean, I guess most people know that black South Africans were prohibited from applying for a gun license. But I think it is, I mean, given our high levels of crime, I think a lot of us, we are living in fear. People are scared. And again, to make reference to Sona, I mean, there are high levels of fear. And people's knee-jerk response is, a gun can make me safe. Because I think for most of us, if we think about a gun, it gives a message of power. It's about superior firepower. But all the evidence shows otherwise. The risk for suicide in the home, intimate partner violence, for accidental death and injury, the risks are too high. And in addition, There's no evidence to show that guns are an effective means of self-defense. They're a good offensive weapon,
Yeah.
but they're not a good self-defense weapon.
Dogs are probably better.
You know, I mean, I think there are lots of things we can do, but the gun is not the solution.
Yeah.
And so Gun-Free South Africa's role is to raise awareness about what are the risks. So if you've been robbed, if you've been mugged, if you're feeling insecure, the knee-jerk response, it's not helpful. It's not going to help you deal with it.
Yeah.
So look at other options.
In conclusion, should we have an annual amnesty where if you have a gun or if you have illegal weapons or if you know of someone that has, you should have a 2-week window period where you can go and get rid of that gun? Should we think about something like that?
Definitely. And in fact, in South Africa as well, it's been shown that if you bring an amnesty in when you are busy amending your law, that's the best possible time. So we would certainly call on the Minister of Police. A massive national firearms amnesty in 2017, no questions asked, no identifying information. Otherwise, you're not going to get the guns off the streets.
Get the guns off our streets.
And out of our homes.
Get the guns out of the home, because you are much more at risk of getting shot by your own weapon, if not by your own partner. That's the facts. Thank you, Adele. Thank you for being with us. Adele Kirsten is Director of Gun-Free South Africa. And guns in the home hurt us, she says. Simple. Now, the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee looking into the affairs of the SABC resumes its work in Parliament today. They've just resumed their work. On the agenda will be feedback from affected parties on the interim report sent to them for comment. That was now 2 weeks ago. Affected parties have more than a couple of days to then comment before the deadline. That's the 16th of February later this week. Now, let's stay with the Portfolio Committee on Communications. They're yet to process the names, of course, but let's cross over there live.
Is that my understanding? The 21st, which is Tuesday, Wednesday the 22nd, and possibly Friday the 24th. Then the following Monday is the 27th. The Tuesday is the 28th, which is out then. By that next Friday, then we've got to have dealt with going through all the submissions plus the recommendations. So so we might have to sit beyond normal hours, I think, Chair. You know, and I'm quite happy to do that. That's the first point. Secondly, just from a legal perspective, we might need to obtain advice where we have differing versions, because we haven't had time to ascertain which person is actually telling the truth. And that's going to be a challenge when you have people that are now disputing versions that have been put before us. In our limited time to determine, we've been trying to determine the facts, but actually to get to the truth requires a lot of cross-examination and a lot of time. So we might need guidance from a legal perspective as to how do we reach a certain version, how do we accept a certain version where we've got two conflicting views. And I think that's going to be a challenge. So we could maybe just alert our researchers and legal advisors to highlight those particular issues where there is a very clear conflict of versions. And then how do we then go about ascertaining which version we accept? Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Loliwe, followed by Killian, followed by Chauke, followed by Khoza. Remember, we're dealing just with the process. Can I ask Ms. Atakari? I know once again we're ambushing you, but on Swartz, if there's a suggestion on how we deal with that matter, you'll be the very last one to speak. You want to come back, Honourable Waters? On the first point? Okay. It's going to be Loliwe, Killian, Chauke, Khoza, and Waters on the proposal we're making to start next week. Then we will go to any other business thereafter. So I'm going to limit you just to the proposal. Ma'am Atakari, you'll speak at the very end on Honourable Swart's thing. Honourable Loliwe.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I agree with the previous speakers. Today we were to assess the submissions so as to be able to determine the manner in which we are going to work next week. So when we agree that, let's rather focus on next week, because to me, even what has been submitted is more of add-ons than necessarily commenting on the report. So I support your proposal. Thanks.
Honourable Killian.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just comment on your proposal. I would like to support it. I happen to have been the sponsor of the suggestion that we should actually start processing this week, and because in anticipation of quite voluminous reactions and responses, we thought that we should work steadily through it. So, since we have only received 3 so far, and we are anticipating more, obviously it makes sense for us to defer our meeting to next week. Chair, I would like to make the second point, and that is that because only Wednesday next week is the budget speech day, that if you could submit requests to the House Chairperson, that we can actually meet during the sittings. There are sittings during on Tuesday the 21st, as well as Thursday the 23rd. But as is the practice, some committees sometimes receive the necessary permission to work, should it be necessary for us to work through sittings of the House. We can always meet next door if we can have access to S26 so that we can have easy access to the House should we be required for a vote. Chair, then lastly, as far as concerns expressed about how do we deal with it, I think our request to all and sundry was to indicate to us if there are any inaccuracies captured in our report and to reply on that. I would suggest, and we will hear from legal, but I would suggest that in cases where we could not beyond doubt determine what was the truth, we actually just reflect both sides. In the end, it is our recommendations that will have to be very well thought through. And I would like to concur with Honourable Swart, except that I'm not too concerned. It is a task, but I'm sure that we have already worked on some of the recommendations. We could extend in some respects, but the body of the recommendations we have already captured. We've worked on it before, so it should be possible for us, even if we also set aside Friday, the 24th, for a full day of committee work. Thank you, Chairperson.
No, Chair, I want to agree with the proposal that you have put forward, as supported by all members so far. Let us wait for, because I see that in one of the newspapers, the New Age, in fact, confirmed that they will be sending a submission next week. They're saying this week, in fact. I'm reading this, which came out, I think, yesterday. So we're still going to receive a lot of submissions. So I think what we should do, Chair, is to agree with your office, the work that has been done in this document that is before us. And this process must be the process that can just be followed. The issue that is raised by Honourable Swart, I agree that we may want to ignite legal to come on board just to deal with issues of divergent views. And then we just proceed as we have started, because the format that you have taken is a correct format. You have started to process even the 3 that came through. You have already started to process them correctly. So if we can continue doing that, come next week, we can then have a document that speaks of, in fact, we'll have copies and a document, in fact, that speaks of the content of those submissions. So it will make a lot of sense. And I think that I want to agree that we may not even want to proceed further. But it was a good thing to have this engagement, Chair, that time and time we'll have to reflect on a number of things, you know, as we move forward. There's nothing wrong that we cannot meet, and you know, there's no reason to meet. And, you know, always there's a reason, because we are dealing with a problem that is so deep there. I think you'll hear that as we engage further, maybe on the point that is raised by Bob Mahlangu, that we'll hear what are the issues there. But I think it's important that time and time, sometimes we can meet 12 o'clock at night. It's emergency, we have to do that. Members must just be ready to help work together and resolve the problems that are confronting SABC. So on that note, Chair, I want to support that. And I think in that spirit again, let's continue doing the beautiful work that we are doing for our country.
Honorable Khoza.
Chair, arising out of the discussions that we have now, which highlight the need for this particular meeting, it's very clear to me that we may need additional primary resources, and especially where there has been a dispute on material fact. Right now, that SABC Foxon contract, we have to get the actual contract, and probably the chair must be given a mandate by this committee to use whatever means, so that when we come next week, we have that information. Another one, Chair, I know we've labored on this point previously, but I do think that it's going to be absolutely critical that we get a legal opinion on the status of the MOI. And I'm saying that, Chair, because that MOI appears to be in force, and it seems to be implemented as we speak. And we need to have something that is concrete on that score, especially from our legal team. And I think it relates to the points that probably Mahlangu wanted to raise, Chair, and I think it's going to be very important that we get a definite response on that, because the way we are going to be formulating the recommendations will have to pronounce itself very clearly on the status of the MOI, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Honourable Waters.
Chair, just considering what's been said and given the timeframes, and I think we're going to be under a lot more pressure than we think, actually. We are scheduled to sit on Friday. Is there any reason why we can't sit on Friday? I mean, I think it's scheduled. We've been given notice of it. And we could start dealing with the submissions that we got last week and the week before, to save time. I hear what Honourable Killian saying, sorry, I think it's Sandy. But I do think the recommendations are going to take a lot longer than what we anticipate. I think we're going to have differences of opinion when we get to them. So I do think we need to have, if I may speak, Chair, thank you very much. So I do think we need to set aside ample time for the recommendations. Thank you.
All right, let me try and summarize. Members seem to be suggesting that meeting scheduled for Wednesday be canned. The first proposal was that we start on Tuesday, and the understanding was that the 16th is Thursday, and people have until 5 o'clock. We still have to do the collating, putting together, doing the research kind of thing that Singh was talking about, so that we have a meaningful discussion on Monday, on Tuesday or stroke Monday. That was the rationale. Comrade Waters is suggesting, Honourable Waters, I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon, sir. I beg your pardon. Yeah. Honourable Waters is suggesting that we should consider using Friday for the 3 or 4 that we have, because there's already been some work done on those 3 or 4. That's the suggestion that Honourable Waters is, or the amendment that he's making to the proposal. Now I'm looking at Singh, who suggested the process. That's why I'm looking at you, sir, because it conflicts basically on those two. And I'm looking at Cindy, because Cindy, I want to remind members again, let us be humane. If we get a document at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, I don't know what the deadline is, somebody needs to work after hours for us to be ready at 8 the next morning. So I'm saying in all our proposals, let us just be humane on that one, because we're not even sure in what format those responses will come. But I am open to any proposal. So I'm hoping that then, I don't want to open up for a reprocess, because remember Singh had said we must also discuss the process. Let me just discuss this process and we go on. Honourable Singh, you would see, and I think it was Waters or somebody, we had already started doing what you were saying. Might not be in detail, but we had started in receiving responses, trying to uplift what was important for members to decide whether they want to incorporate that in the report. So we had started that process. The only thing we hadn't done was the legal part of it. In terms of the other 2 points that you raised, I'm not sure if Honorable Khoza covered it, but basically, in his response, Mr. Foxton wrote back to us saying to us he wants to correct the rand value. We wrote to him and said to him, please give us the contract because at least we're working on a concrete document. He then responded by saying that contract we should request from SABC. We've written to SABC to request it. So that is the letter we're talking about, and we're hoping that you will condone it. It was all in the process of ensuring that we do real work as opposed to thinking. So that's the Foxton matter, Honorable Swartz. The other one you raised was to the PC. In the response that we received from Mr. Mateza, or in correspondence with Mr. Mateza, he raised an issue about the funding of these legal challenges that take place, and indicated that as his understanding, there is some insurance policy that addresses this matter. So we've written to the Portfolio Committee saying, this is hearsay, for want of a better word, and I say it with all the respect. Can the Portfolio Committee confirm it, so that when we deal with this matter, that partly what you were raising, Honorable Mahlangu, that we have some documents. So that was really the letter, asking the Portfolio Committee if they are aware of any policy that talks to funding of litigation costs. That was what the letter was basically. Is there any policy in place? Because it has a material impact on our own recommendations that talk to people that must pay out of their pocket. And we are hoping if it needs to be formally ratified, then you can either ratify them. But those two letters have in fact gone out. One asking, is there a policy to cover costs? The second one was to the SABC, asking them to, by the end of today, I think, submit the contract of Foxton, so that when we talk to that matter, we have a formal contract in front of us. I'm hoping that that was not overstepping the mark, Honorable Honorable Singh. Those are the two letters those are the two letters that we wrote. All now that we need to talk about is how do we factor Honorable Waters' request for the need for Friday, if that still stands, Honorable Waters, the need for Friday. What do members say? Friday. Let's take Swartz and then take Chauke, and then take Mokoena, and then we close this matter. Then we go to other matters and carry on. What do we do about Friday, or do we stick to the Monday proposal? So, Singh, Chauke, and Mokoena.
I thought you were referring to me, Chair, but you said Swart. Okay, thanks. No, Chair, I still stand by my proposal because I don't believe we should meet for the sake of meeting. You know, in this document here, which I referred to, there are certain recommendations by the research team, which we have to take cognizance of, agree with or disagree with. Some you've already actioned, and we give you ex post facto approval for those actions that you've taken. Right? We've got other work to do as well. There's a Finance Committee meeting on Friday, Parliament Finance Committee, which Honourable Waters is on that. So I don't think here we should just meet for the sake of meeting. Let's meet when we have all the facts, we have the research team having gone through what A says and what B says, and provide evidence to us that what A said is what was said under oath during the hearing, and what B says now was not said under oath. So we can assess for ourselves who is speaking the truth, or which information is more reliable. So I would still say, let's stick. I can agree with the idea that possibly
Well, we have to cut away from Parliament now as the honourable members continue the discussions around the process to follow for how the matter, that's of course the SABC inquiry, will proceed over the next few days. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, well, we're going to look at a book slot and also Valentine's Day. Don't go away.
A top 5 rated horse racing event in the world, fashion is a highlight for those in attendance. All decked out in blue and white, the Lomorians Queen Plate is the premier event that kicked off everyone's social calendar.
That it was all part of my master plan to cast John Legend but deprive him of his normal instrument and give that one to Ryan.
The House of Truth is not just a name. It is a religion. It is a lifestyle. It is a conviction that drives us.
What really excites me is how people have kept it very simple and also played with the theme, and how each person has interpreted it in their own way.
To stay updated with all the current entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News. Now, of course, it's Valentine's Day, and I'm sure everyone is looking forward to celebrations with loved ones a little bit later today. But let me give you a quick little history about the Day of Love that's been, well, commercialized now all over the world. The Catholic Church recognized at least 3 different saints named Valentine or Valentinus. It's believed the legend that Valentine was a priest who served during the 3rd century in Rome, when Emperor Claudius II decided that single men made better soldiers than those with wives and families, he outlawed marriage for young men. Valentine went on to perform marriages for young lovers in secret. Claudius ordered that he be put to death. But while in prison, Valentine fell in love with a young woman, possibly his jailer's daughter, who visited him during his confinement. Before his death, it is alleged that he wrote her a letter signed "From your Valentine." I can hear all the R's in the background. Anyhow, we're running a poll today because everyone has an opinion on it. Is Valentine's Day, is it part of your culture? Well, you see now where it comes from. It comes from prison. Yes, a man who wrote letters in prison. That in itself is problematic. But we're running this poll. Is Valentine's Day part of your culture? We've got 268 people that have voted thus far. Only 12% say yes, it's part of what I do, I like it. 54% say no, it's not part of what I do. And 34% say I don't care. How much money do you spend on Valentine's Day? Well, you guys are tweeting us feverishly. Let's just take a couple of the tweets that you guys are busy talking about. This one from Arthur Kukunga, and he says, Newsroom, I don't believe in Valentine. Love's an everyday thing, and you don't have to wait for the special day to show someone that you love him or her. Yeah, it just so coincides after the festive season when the shops need you to spend a little bit of money. Lindle Paneng says, Newsroom, many things are celebrated and yet are not part of our culture, like Christmas. Don't be afraid to buy gifts and say it's not. Yeah, don't be afraid to buy gifts. It's exactly what they want you to do. Love is everybody's culture, says Lindle Paneng. Absolutely, I agree with that. Ikononazo says, Newsroom, it's definitely not my culture. It's a Western thing. Growing up, I never heard of it. This one from Tabo Motlo, he says, Newsroom, Valentine is a commercial tool and not my culture. Well, interesting views. Love the way that you guys have a view on it. we all will listen to our children who at school are told to buy flowers and do the like. And that's just part of the process. Anyhow, time now for us to do our regular weekly book slot. Now, Recoil is the name of the book. The strap is called The Game Is On. Now, it's the first installment of a trilogy, and I got all of them here, actually. It's about a 16-year-old young woman, Jinxie James. She spends her days trapped at home playing video games, very much like a lot of our youth today. Now, Jinxie, she's later recruited to join in the force against the terrorists and meets a young man called Quinn. She's immediately drawn to Quinn O'Reilly, a charming and subversive intelligence analyst who knows more about the new order of government and society than he's telling. Now, to talk to us about Recoil, the trilogy, we're joined in studio by the author, Joanne McGregor. Very good morning to you, Joanne. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Evan. Thank you for having me.
First, tell me about why you've decided to go with a sort of endgame war scenario, apocalyptic war scenario. Is that what people are really interested in today?
Yeah, it's a dystopian book, and I think the interesting thing about dystopians is that they're set in a fictional future world, but they really talk about the world that we're in today. And so the themes that I explore in this book in a fictional way are actually things that worry me and concern me about the world we're living in today.
And what are those? Is it the fact that our children are spending too much time playing video games?
No, that's just because I needed to get her to an expert level of being a sniper without actually leaving the house. It's more about, I suppose, the political message of the book, which is that we sacrifice individual freedoms.
Yeah.
Because our government tells us it's safer to do so. And in an age of international terrorism, we can often be frightened into being obedient and into being fearful, good citizens, and not actually see the hidden agenda of what's really happening.
Now, tell us about the trilogy, because do people still read that much? 3 books in a row, do you think? You know, I find it difficult. I talk to people and they find it difficult to read one book. I had an author last week who wrote a 54-page novel and told me that this is the kind of thing that people want today. They want to read shorter books. Is that true?
I think there's a lot of different kind of readers, but there are readers who like to binge read, like there are viewers who like to binge watch a whole television series once it's out. And if you're clever as a writer and you don't quite wrap up things or you leave them on an exciting note at the end of the book, hopefully you can pull people into the next one.
Tell me a little bit about the story, because it's a story that kind of resonates with me. It's the end of the world scenario, and there are these rats in the book and a sort of viruses all around, and people are living indoors and in total locked up and in fear.
It's set in a near future or even an alternate present USA, where there's been a terrorist-spread biopandemic, which has decimated the population. And that's caused a massive shift to the right in terms of politics. And it's affected the way people live and how they're trapped in homes and how they have to work virtually. And this girl becomes an expert at playing a game in which she plays as a sniper. And then she's recruited to this shadowy government organization, supposedly to help in the war against terror. And she starts uncovering a conspiracy along the way. And of course she falls in love because, you know, what's a book without love, especially on Valentine's Day?
Especially on Valentine's Day, no doubt. She's 16 years old. Does this book speak to a specific audience, or is it just a coincidence that she's 16 years old and probably impressionable and the like and goes on this magical journey, if you can call it that?
Well, it's a young adult book, and the interesting thing about young adult books is that although they are supposedly written about teens and for teens, about 60% of them are bought and read by adults. So it's quite an interesting genre. It moves quickly, the story's always entertaining, the emotions are urgent and exciting. So that's the target market, whoever's young at heart or whoever's young. I think that when you're in your teens, it is a time of deciding who you are, and you know, who you are morally and who you are in terms of your work identity. So it's a good match for that kind of exploration of the story.
Of course, the gaming element is it's quite strong in the whole book, and it's a very now thing. Do you think this book changes the way that maybe my generation could could view the gaming fraternity?
I think it should. Well, my goal is that it would make people stay woke, so that it should change the way you view not only gaming, but politics and commercial interests in politics and the future, and not just question what you're told.
You're a psychologist. Fictional books like this, does it make the world a better place?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, apart from the escapism, which I think we all need from time to time, there's studies showing that fiction in particular helps develop empathy in the brains of readers, because you immerse yourself in the viewpoint and in the shoes of the characters. And so you live many different lives, and you're exposed to many different cultures and many different people, and that makes you more empathic, and it makes you more tolerant. It also makes you smarter.
In today's world, there seems to be a real lack of empathy, isn't there? If you just look around us, not just politically, in society in general, we don't often put ourselves or walk a mile in the shoes of another person. Why do you think that is?
I think we're living increasingly isolated lives and insular lives and online lives. We're having less and less contact with people. But I find it fascinating that you pick up on that, because it was one of the ideas behind the book, where I was watching a television program on snipers who were, professional army snipers, who were both incredibly skilled and talented and completely unempathic. They had no problems with what they were doing.
Yeah, with shooting a 12-year-old girl carrying water for home or something.
It's different to being a normal soldier where you're being fired at and you fire back. It's a very intimate kind of thing. You see the person, you often stalk them for days, you understand their family and their routine, and you see their face when the lights go out their eyes.
Yeah.
And yet, on the other hand, it's a game changer, and arguably it saves lives, because you don't have to send so many troops in. So I was fascinated by this combination of really skilled and not terribly compassionate or empathic. And I wondered, what would happen if we had someone who was very skilled, but who didn't like to hurt things or kill people? And that's where that book was born.
In this day and age, in the social media world we live in, people are quite mean when they're behind their laptop or behind their phones and so forth. Is this in a way trying to get people to see a little bit more than just what they feel?
Well, I suppose this isn't about that in particular, but I agree with you that people definitely should. It's easy to be a bully when you don't have to see the consequences for someone else.
What's next for Joanne?
In the next month or so, I will have a new romance coming out, also a young adult romance, and it's a realistic, non-fantasy retelling of the Little Mermaid myth.
Wow.
About a girl, it's set in Cape Town, and it's about a girl who trades her voice for love.
That will be interesting. Set in Cape Town, no less. So that's where I come from. We don't know much about love in that city. Anyhow. Recoil is the first one in a 3-part series. Let me just show it to you quickly. It's Refuse and Rebel. That's the 3-part series that you should have a look at. Joanne McGregor's latest work. Well, she's already busy with others. Thanks for coming in today and sharing with us.
Thanks so much.
Well, that's our book slot for the week. Are we going to take a little break? Yes, let's take a short break. Kendall will be back with us with sport right after this.
Network, we tell you about Africa's social media and technology landscape. 21st century economies rely on technology to truly thrive.
We have quite a comprehensive portfolio of interventions in the tech entrepreneurship space.
And Africans are using tech and social media to solve the continent's unique challenges.
App Nigeria is an online marketplace. Radio Vibe is a social media platform for radio music.
That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
Welcome back. My name is Kendall Makamat, and of course I've got your sports for you right here on Newsroom. Top stories about the PSL, where after a resounding 6-0 victory against Orlando Pirates at the Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria on Saturday, Mamelodi Sundowns will face Chippa United in an absolute premiership match in Mdantsane this evening. Chippa only managed a 2-1 win against Baroka FC last week, and they should be wary of the African champions. A win for the 5th-placed absolute premiership defending champions will see them leapfrog both Bidvest Wits and SuperSport United on the log.
It will be a battle of the master tacticians at Sister Tugashe Stadium in Mdantsane. The 2016 CAF Coach of the Year, Pitso Musimane, will square up against Daniel Malisela. While Musimane's Sundowns are known for their fluent running and taking the game to the opposition, Malisela's troops have made a name for themselves by slick passing, dribbling and enjoying ball possession. Chippa are 9th on the log with 19 points from 15 outings. The Brazilians, on the other hand, are playing catch-up after their exploits in the 2016 CAF Champions League. They are 5th with 25 points after just 11 matches.
It's difficult to play catch-ups, but then we'll try and do our best because we need to collect as much as points we could. We can't afford to drop points, so we'll try our best, even though it's pressure, but then I think we're used to it now.
The last time Chippa and Sundowns met in a league match was last year at the Lucas Moripe Stadium, where the Brazilians won 3-0. Bafana defender Anele Ngonga has fully recovered from a knee injury and he is ready to fight for a starting berth.
We've got good players in all departments. If you can see, Tapelo is doing great at the right back, so I have to wait for my chance, and it's the story of the football. Like the coach have said, we take one game at a time and we'll see the next game is against Chippa.
The Chippa Sundowns match will kick off at 7:30 p.m. Mduduzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Now, while all this was going on, Cape Town City captain Lebogang Manyama has been named the Premier Soccer League's Player of the Month for 3 months in a row. This from October to December last year. His mentor and former Orlando Pirates coach Eric Tinkler was named Coach of the Month for December.
Despite his exceptional technical prowess as a footballer and his ability to unlock defense, Lebogang Manyama says experienced PSL campaigners in the team has helped him to lead by example. Manyama has been instrumental in the success of table toppers Cape Town City this season, netting 9 goals in the league, 2 goals shy of leading goal scorer Tendai Ndoro of Orlando Pirates, who has 11 goals thus far.
And honestly, I still say I didn't expect to be the captain, because I expected to be one of the seniors, but I expected probably one of the other senior guys to be captains. But I think that the one thing that's helped me a lot is that I'm playing amongst a whole lot of players that have probably achieved more than I have in my career, that have been captains at bigger teams.
Tinkler, whose team won silverware in their first season in top flight football, says at the back of their recent results, he has no reason not to dream big.
What Pitso achieved at Sundowns is a phenomenal achievement. Hopefully one day I will get the opportunity to also be at Club World Cup, because you're playing against the likes of Barcelona's and Real Madrid's and Bayern Munich's, and that's where you want to be. That's the pinnacle of the sport.
SuperSport United coach Stuart Baxter, who was named the Coach of the Month for October and November, is expected to be handed his award tomorrow. SuperSport were out of the country due to their exploits on the African continent. Joseph Mohali, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And of course, tonight's a very big night where Barcelona coach Luis Enrique is not expecting any favours from PSG when they take to the field in an UEFA Champions League last 16 tie at the Parc des Princes in Paris tonight. He is instead firmly of the opinion that Unai Emery, the home side's coach, will count on past experience to make life difficult for Barca. Barca knocked PSG out of the quarterfinals in 2013 and 2015, but Luis Enrique warned that the French champions are now more structured.
Sin ninguna duda. Tenemos buen recuerdo.
Yes, we have good memories from this pitch, from this team, but it was never easy. PSG has never submitted. They have never been docile. They're a competitor whose coach knows us perfectly. Emery knows Barca. He knows what we have to offer to the team in terms of obstacles.
Barca advanced on the away goals rule in 2013 and beat PSG 3-1 and 2-0 2 years ago. However, the French side are now guided by Spaniard Emery, who knows Barca very well from his days of coaching Valencia in 2008 to 2012 and Sevilla from 2013 to 2016.
Sí, sí. Y además conociendo a Unai.
Knowing Unai, I know he will try to make our life complicated. He's putting the pressure on. We have shared goals, and us, PSG and Barca, it's about taking the ball and creating situations where we can attack. But of course, PSG will be taking risks, supported by its fans, and that's going to make things difficult for us.
As for PSG, their coach Unai Emery is convinced that winning the challenges will be key if the Parisians are to stand a chance of upsetting Barcelona tonight.
I want to grow and PSG wants to grow too. Beyond that, it's a process with work, progress and overcoming challenges along the way. This is a challenge for us that we want to overcome. And it's a responsibility for us and a task. But also we need to make the most of it.
PSG have been eliminated in the quarterfinals twice, in 2013 and 2015 by Barca, who start the tie as favourites. The return leg will be played at the Camp Nou on the 8th of March. And in closing for this hour, a federal judge cleared the way for the U.S. government lawsuit seeking nearly $100 million in damages from former professional cyclist Lance Armstrong to go to trial. The U.S. Justice Department has accused Armstrong of defrauding the government by accepting millions of dollars in sponsorship money from the U.S. Postal Service as he led the team to a string of Tour de France victories while he was doping. Armstrong was stripped of his 7 tour titles and banned for life from bicycle racing in 2012 by the U.S. anti-doping agency after it accused him in a report of engineering one of the most sophisticated doping schemes in the history of sports. And on that very expensive note, that's where we'll leave it. We'll be back shortly at the top of the hour with more news. You're watching Newsroom.
Now this is Trends, of course, your one-stop serving of all that's juicy and trending in the world of entertainment and showbiz. My name, of course, is Refill Wemwilo.
I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is our talk.
A very good morning and welcome to Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jolly.
My name is Dumile Matez.
What time is it? It's question time.
For your daily dose of current affairs, tune in to the SABC News channel.
The outbreak that broke out in Zimbabwe's capital late last year has claimed the life of a 13-year-old girl in Harare's township of Mbare.
Most residents have put the blame on the Zimbabwean government for the debilitating economic situation.
There is no interest in the affairs of the city and the town, and really we have to do something about it.
One expert believes the Barclays Absa apartheid funding saga reeks of political factionalism. Yanni Rousseau
says things are not as they seem.
And the money, well, that was whisked out of the country.
Absa paid full value for the assistance. So from that perspective, I cannot see how it can be made out that Absa benefited.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time. This is the final hour here at Newsroom Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Preslin.
I'm Kendall Makhamat.
We'll be with you until 12 o'clock. But today, Kendall, we are talking about the education system.
Yeah.
How, and is it really a question of fee-free education? Because the Minister of Higher Education and Training, Bladen Zimande, says that his department has to now make provision for close to R1 billion worth of damages to university property as a result of the Fees Must Fall campaign last year. So the question becomes...
Absolutely. We're asking you about exactly that. How do we recoup the billion rands in damages at our tertiary institutions from all the violence that ensued last year.
Where will the money come from? That's the question we posed to you. You can let us know on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page. Is there any comments that we have? No? Yes? Well, we'll read some more of them a little bit later. But we're also conducting a poll, Kendall, and that's on Valentine's Day. Now, Valentine's Day has been banned in Pakistan. The Valentine's Day celebrations there on the grounds that it's not part of the Muslim culture.
Yeah, very interesting that. So that's why we're asking the question to you today. Is Valentine's Day part of your culture? We've got some responses already to that particular question.
Very interesting responses. 55% of them are saying no, Kendall.
And we've got 33% saying, I don't care. I just want to point out, while we 12% say yes, a little earlier was 36% that saying, I don't care. I wonder what happened in the last hour to those people that said, I don't care.
They've probably got a couple of phone calls from some loved ones to say, why are you saying that?
Yes. So what you tweeted.
Sipo says, no, it's not. And I don't believe in it. Sorry to say it's a wrong thing to celebrate as far as I know. So says Sipo.
Nke comes in with, it's not part of my culture. It was imposed on us by the Europeans. Hashtag SABC News, Valentine's Day 2017.
There you have it. Nkenke comes again, says, loving my partner is part of my culture. What is not part of my culture is buying gifts for her on this day. But I'm sure you buy on another day, King Kenke.
Unati comes in with, it's not part of my culture, and I don't celebrate it. Hashtag Valentine's deadline day, love, February 14. Not interested this
Yeah, people spend a lot of money on roses today, Kendall. You know, a rose will cost you probably about $100 today. Yesterday or day before, it was probably 20 Rand.
Wow.
Now, Mr. Robot says on Valentine's Day, the adult shop probably makes more money than the shopping malls. Hey!
Hashtag just kidding, he ends up with it. Very cool.
Let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle. But right now, let's get down to business. Let's take a look at your news headlines. Forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan says the courts must deal with the police who arrested him yesterday afternoon. President Jacob Zuma will be back in Parliament again this afternoon for the debate of his State of the Nation address. And the Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gagaba has asked community leaders to refrain from using violence as a means of communication following raids in Rosettenville. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, thanks very much. It's midweek almost, and we've got quite a lot happening on the sports front, mostly football, but a little bit of news about Lance Armstrong and how his demons keep chasing after him. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the terms of the sports today.
Oh, here we go. Chance for number 6. Is it going to be?
Mamelodi Sundowns are poised to climb into the Absa Premiership's top 3 should they win tonight in Mdantsane against Chipa United. And Sergio Aguero proves his mettle as he comes off the bench to score, rocketing the Citizens to second on the log, just 8 behind leaders Chelsea.
And knocked in by a delighted Sergio Aguero.
All this as the United States Justice Department sues disgraced cyclist Lance Armstrong for $100 million. All this and more I've got for you later on the Sports Bulletin. Be sure to stick around for it. For now, it is back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Private forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan has described his arrest by police as an intimidation tactic. O'Sullivan alleges that his arrest yesterday was a result of his investigations into the acting National Police Commissioner Komotso Paslani's R8 million house. Police released O'Sullivan after midnight following a successful High Court urgent application by O'Sullivan's legal team.
A 2016 High Court order saved Paul O'Sullivan from slipping behind bars. That order was granted by Deputy Judge President Aubrey Ledwaba. It states that police must give O'Sullivan 48 hours notice before any arrests. However, on Monday night, police ignored the order and locked up O'Sullivan. Later in court, police made a U-turn and agreed to release O'Sullivan.
1. The first, third and fourth respondents shall release the applicant from detention before 23 hours 30 on 13 February 2017.
It should now be 24.
Well, we have said it. I'm sure they'll do that. 2, the application is removed from the roll.
The police's legal team argued that the order gave O'Sullivan special treatment. It wanted the court to amend the order. However, this was unsuccessful and O'Sullivan was released.
They are the people with the badges, and it is an intimidation tactic, and I will do what is necessary in terms of the law, and with AfriForum, hopefully we will re-establish some sort of control in this country.
O'Sullivan was kept behind bars for nearly 6 hours.
Rosettenville residents here in Johannesburg have justified the torching of 12 houses over the weekend. The residents told senior government and police officials that they are under siege from drug lords. A high-level government delegation, including the Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba, called on community leaders to refrain from using violence as a means of communication. That delegation engaged with residents from violent-fueled areas, including Hillbrow, Yeoville and Rosettenville yesterday. A peace and security awareness campaign was launched to target the crime-ridden areas. Calm has now returned. Parliament will this afternoon begin a 2-day debate on the President's State of the Nation address delivered last Thursday. Political parties are expected to give their responses to the contents of the speech, but it is also likely that the chaos in Parliament before the Sona speech, including the removal of the EFF members from the chamber, will take centre stage. Parliament has meanwhile denied allegations that the South African Police Services helped eject the EFF MPs.
The EFF maintains these protection services members were in fact police officers and should never have been allowed inside the National Assembly. The DA says it too is investigating whether this is indeed the case, but Parliament has vehemently denied this.
We have sufficient capacity in terms of parliamentary protection services. We need no assistance from anyone else to be able to move members of parliament out of the facility. And therefore, any allegations to that effect are rejected by Parliament forthwith. And we are also making an appeal to anyone else who has contrary information to present that information or to bring that information as soon as possible.
Walela adds that Parliament's investigations into the events of that night are ongoing. The probe includes allegations of an unidentified substance in the public gallery. The report will be handed to presiding officers Bale Gambete and Thandi Modise on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the Hawks could not be reached for comment on how far their investigations are into a case of malicious damage to property opened by Parliament following similar scenes of violence in the precinct last year. Lukhanyo Chalada, SABC News, Parliament.
The small mining town of Stilfontein near Klerksdorp in the northwest is in shock after 7 people, including children, were allegedly knocked down in 3 hit-and-run accidents. The community alleges that the accidents are linked to one driver who allegedly targeted his victims by bumping into them on the pavements. The suspect is expected in court today.
This is one of 3 locations where unsuspecting children as young as 3 years old were stalked and mowed down by an unknown man in an unidentified vehicle. With scenes of children scattered like this, parents and neighbors are furious and want justice.
Let the law take its course. The car came after him and it hit him. It hit him right here.
Florence Mutekeshe is the only adult victim. She says she tried to avoid the car, but there was no escape.
I was walking by the pavement, and then the car was coming, facing me, and he went outside to my side. And then I wanted to turn to another side, and she bumped me.
Meanwhile, police in the province are investigating a case of reckless and negligent driving for the 3 accidents. A suspect has been arrested and is expected to appear in the Stilfontein Magistrate Court. Sintle English, SABC News, Stilfontein near Klerksdorp.
Violence broke out at the African National Congress Northern Cape Lekgotla, which had to be cancelled. Disgruntled party members disrupted the two-day Lekgotla, organised ahead of the Provincial Elective Conference in March. The members say lists within the party have been rigged. They have called on the ANC National Executive Committee to intervene.
Cracks within the provincial ANC are starting to show. With the conference a few weeks away, members are throwing their weight behind preferred candidates. Provincial ANC Treasurer and Premier Silva Lucas is expected to go up against Provincial Secretary Zamani Saul for the position of chairperson during the conference. The party has condemned the behavior of members who stormed the Lekgotla.
We are not going to be intimidated by people who decide to come and disrupt our meetings. We are not going to be intimidated by the violence that will be leveled against us. We remain focused to ensure that the process is on track to have a provincial conference.
Members who disrupted the Lekgotla accuse senior party leaders of manipulating party processes.
In the Northern Cape, when we don't want you as the leadership, then you will not appear in any audited documents of the ANC. The provincial secretary of the ANC in this province does not have the title deed of the ANC. He is not going to continue as if he's not accountable. He's accountable to us.
Deployed ANC NEC member Mcebisi Skwacha says disagreements and infighting are part of most elections.
Conference elections bring tensions here in the Northern Cape and anywhere else, as you would be able to observe as we proceed towards the national conference.
The provincial Lekgotla is expected to reconvene later in the week. Neria Hlakotza, SABC News in Kimberley.
Former chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, says that land reform in South Africa isn't only about restitution, but also about agrarian reform and empowerment of landowners. Dlamini Zuma was speaking at a colloquium conference hosted by Dr. John Dube Institute of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Now, the organization provides research and advocacy perspectives on land issues.
South Africa has been grappling with a slow and often failed land reform program. Government's also under pressure to adopt a more radical approach. Dlamini Zuma says South Africa can learn from the land restitution policies in other African countries such as Botswana. She said its success was a result of being more transparent, democratic and decentralized. But she said South Africa's land restitution process needs to be broader.
It is not just restitution to have the land and just say, there is my land. But it must go with either agrarian reform, it must go with training people how to use the land, it must go with access to finance so that they can be able to develop the land.
She also said that mineral-rich Africa should add value to its raw materials and products.
We must also add value, because the shared prosperity can only come if we can create jobs, young people can innovate, and we can add value to what we produce.
Dlamini Zuma also says that African countries must realize the potential of the ocean economy, including the fishing industry, shipping, deep-sea mining and oil and gas exploration. Renee Heine, SABC News, Durban.
Last week, the Western Cape Department of Health announced that a total of 232 attacks on emergency medical services personnel were reported between 2012 and 2016. It is a disturbing trend. Now, this was revealed in a briefing by the Provincial Health Department in the Provincial Parliament. The province has since allocated over 185 million rand for protection of medical workers and their facilities. Now, for more on the story, we're joined by Russell Mayring, ER24 spokesperson. A very good morning to you and welcome.
And good morning to you, sir.
Russell, is there an increase in these type of attacks on medical personnel?
Unfortunately, we are seeing some sort of increase. We are seen as very soft targets, whether you are in the private sector or in the provincial services. No matter what the hour, we are responding to these incidents. So we are seen as very soft targets.
What protection is there that you have currently available to medical personnel?
Well, no matter what service, as I said, private or in the provincial sector, we work very close in hand with the local authorities. But unfortunately, we can't get these local authorities to go out with us on every single call. ER24, for example, has started an MSHI course where we are training our paramedics in hostile environments, teaching them what to look for and how to diffuse the situation.
Are you also teaching them self-defense?
We are teaching them self-defense to a certain degree. But we don't want to push it too far where we start carrying lethal weapons and we are now seen as not a neutral force anymore. Paramedics are supposed to be seen as a neutral force.
Now, we did talk about the numbers a little bit earlier, 232 attacks from 2012 to 2016. It's a worrying trend. Is that on the increase and what are you seeing here in Gauteng?
Unfortunately, that is on the rise. As I said before, we are a very soft target. Not only personally, but the equipment that we carry in our emergency vehicles. Fortunately, this year, as far as I'm aware, we haven't had any attacks on our emergency services, and hopefully it'll stay that way.
Is enough being done, you think, in terms of raising the awareness, especially with communities where your services are essential when people get injured?
Absolutely. We are trying to raise the awareness, not only in your rural sectors, but everywhere, really. The attacks on paramedics not only harms the paramedics, but the community as well. So we are busy raising awareness and starting campaigns to try and get people out there to notice things, and if they see anything, to report it immediately.
Where do they report it if they do have something to say?
Well, they can report it to the local authorities immediately. They can call the emergency numbers and try and get the local authorities out there.
From your staff's perspective, the emergency personnel, what sort of sense are you getting? What is the morale, and are they perhaps afraid to go out on these trips in order to save other people?
Fortunately, our paramedics and paramedics all over love their job, but their morale will be very low. If you are constantly getting attacked or constantly under the fear of your life when working in these situations, the morale will be very, very low, and it's very hard to pick that morale up once it's dropped. So unfortunately, these attacks need to stop because, as I said, it doesn't only affect the patient, but it affects the community as well.
Do they get counselling after such an incident?
Absolutely. On several occasions, ER24 has got a very good trauma support system. So on this, where we will obviously report to the local authorities, de-escalate the situation, get trauma support out there. If they are too far from the trauma support, telephonic support can happen as well.
What are you getting from the communities as to why these attacks are happening?
Unfortunately, it's not known why these attacks are happening at all, and we are pleading with the community to please report it. There must be a few members in the community that know what's going on. Surely these people are bragging about that they've just robbed an ambulance or mugged 2 people. So there must be just even a few members of the community that knows what's going on. So we are pleading to them that to please bring forward the information and report these people that are harming not only the patients, but the community especially.
You also talked about your equipment being stolen and taken in these events. What sort of, and why are they looking for your equipment?
Well, unfortunately, this equipment is getting stolen as it's quite expensive as well, but it can't be used anywhere. It's very specialized medical equipment, so you can't just pick it up and start using it. Some of the medication that our advanced life support paramedics carry as well are quite high scheduled medications, so these are being stolen as well. On the paramedics' persons, we are seeing cell phones, wallets, some sort of tablets, maybe music devices as well.
Now, the issue of medical personnel being vulnerable, and as you said, it's a soft target, is there perhaps a sense from your perspective that these personnel should be escorted by police?
In a perfect world, we would love to be escorted by the local authorities. But now, roughly, there are over 300 emergency services in South Africa. All right. And you can't expect every single call to be escorted by local authorities. All right. You are then not going to have anyone policing the areas. All right. You are only going to have them following ambulances and response cars. So in a perfect world, we would like to see that, but it's not going to happen. We would prefer it that these incidents don't occur at all. In serious situations, we do utilize the services of the local authorities for dangerous situations.
Is there very close cooperation between you and the authorities at that particular point in time?
Absolutely. I believe all the emergency services, whether it's private or provincial, utilize the services of the local authorities. We work hand in hand.
And then what else do you think can be done to reduce these type of attacks?
Well, I would love to say, you know, paramedics shouldn't carry any cell phones or anything like that, but it is daily items that we use.
Yes.
So to all the paramedics out there, that they just need to be vigilant. All right, keep their eyes open, keep the valuables on them, lock the vehicles and things like that. To the community, if you are seeing anything suspicious or you notice anything happening, immediately call the local authorities. So as I said, this is harming the community around you.
Is there a sense perhaps that there should be more community engagements where you have sort of hotels to go out and talk to the community about these things, especially with schools in the area, to spread that awareness about the services that you provide, which is very essential?
Absolutely. We are currently in the process, and we've been doing it for a number of months and years actually, where we go out to the schools and we teach them about emergency services. We've got a lot of our branch managers that visit the rural areas and they chat to the community about this, and they go to the community forums and things like that, and they chat to them about what emergency services does, what we're involved in, and what are our requirements from the community. So I do believe that the services should go out more and maybe engage with the community a bit more.
Is there also perhaps the possibility for interns to come into the services in order to learn from the communities, to come through and just learn about what you guys are doing and how they can assist?
It is a very smart idea, absolutely. We do get quite a few interns where we teach them about what emergency services does and what we're all about. It's not just riding in a fast vehicle with flashing lights, it's engaging with the community, and because that's who our patients are, that's who our clients are, is the community. So dealing with them could only be positive.
Russell Mayrong, I thank you so much for your time and joining us.
Thank you,
all
sir.
the best of luck, and we do hope that the community hear your cry.
Thank you very much, sir.
That was Russell Mayrong. He's the ER24 spokesperson here. And please, when you see them, assist them. Don't mug them, assist them. It's very important on this Valentine's Day. Russell is also wearing red today. You see, he's feeling the love. So spread the love for the medical personnel. Let's move on now to other stories. The United Nations has withdrawn the nomination of a former Palestinian prime minister to a top UN job over objections from the United States. Several UN officials have indicated that the US initially appeared on board with the appointment of Salam Fayyad before changing their mind.
The United States appears to be the only country to oppose the nomination, citing in this statement that for too long the UN had been unfairly biased in favor of the Palestinian Authority to the detriment of US allies in Israel.
He is the right person for the right job at the right moment. He has qualities that are recognized everywhere. He has a competence that nobody denies. And Libya requires the kind of capacity that he has. And I think it's a loss for the Libyan peace process and for the Libyan people that I'm not able to appoint him.
It also said it did not recognize the state of Palestine or support the signal the appointment of former Prime Minister Salam Fayyad would send within the UN. But an official here, speaking on background, indicated that initial consultations with all UN Security Council member states, including the Permanent Five, gave no indication that there was any concern around the nomination of a Palestinian. My exchange earlier with the UN spokesperson.
General able to make the appointment despite the US objection to it?
All I can say at this stage, you've seen what's happened with the consultations process. We were not able to get the result we wanted, and the Secretary General himself has said that, you know, as I said earlier, I think it's a loss for the Libyan peace process and for the Libyan people that I'm not able to appoint him. The consultations will continue, but...
So a member state of the United Nations, essentially, whether they're a P5 member or not, essentially has the power to overrule an appointment by the Secretary General?
There's a consultation process, and this is in line with what happens with all envoys who have to report to the Security Council.
Yes, but the final decision rests with whom? The consultation process or the Secretary General?
The final decision rests with the Secretary General, but when you make an appointment, you want that person to be able to do their job and have the support that that person would need.
Other P5 members, including France and the United Kingdom, had expressed their support for the now defunct nomination. Sherman Brycepease, SABC News, New York.
The United Nations Refugee Agency, meanwhile, says that the ongoing violence in South Sudan has created Africa's largest refugee crisis as thousands continue to pour into neighboring Uganda. The latest influx of refugees is straining the capacity of transit and reception centres, which are too small for the growing number of arrivals as agencies appeal for more donor funds.
Thousands of refugees continue to arrive in Uganda to escape attacks from armed forces in South Sudan. The United Nations Refugee Agency says the situation has made South Sudan Africa's largest refugee crisis and the world's third largest after Syria and Afghanistan, with less attention and chronic levels of underfunding. Uganda is already hosting over 500,000 of South Sudan's 1.5 million refugees forced to leave their homes and seek safety since conflict erupted in the country in December 2013. Rights groups and UN monitors say soldiers have gang-raped women based on their ethnic regions. Rape by rebels has also been reported. 30-year-old Hawa and her 6 children recently arrived in Guluba, a small town in northern Uganda, close to one of the many points along the border with South Sudan. She is among refugees streaming into Uganda.
I had just planted some crops and I was waiting to harvest. I lost everything because of the war. They are killing people. I'm scared for my life.
The latest influx is straining the capacity of transit and reception centers, which are too small for the growing number of arrivals. Uganda is widely recognized as having progressive and forward-thinking refugee and asylum policies. Upon receiving refugee status, refugees are provided with small areas of land in villages integrated within the local host communities. According to UNHCR, more than 52,000 refugees have been received in Uganda since January 2017. Raymond Towongo barely escaped his hometown on an old bicycle. He lost everything when his village was attacked.
Look at me. I'm wearing torn dirty clothes. We sleep in the bush. This is a terrible situation.
In 2016, the humanitarian appeal for the South Sudan response received less than 75% of the funds needed to meet the demands.
Probably we should ask the question, is the ICC targeting African leaders?
For the life of me, I would hate to be charged with crimes against humanity. Very few people can deny nor ignore that there are crimes being committed on the African continent at this very moment. Now, we need to be able to hold people to account regardless of where they are from.
South Africa has a body of international law that it's committed itself to, that seeks to counter impunity in the world when it comes to gross human rights violations. In this specific instance, we have a problem. By the way, you must remember that South Africa has a law on extradition and mutual legal assistance that enable us to extradite any fugitive of justice from anywhere in the world so that they can stand trial for whatever crimes.
Welcome back. A court in Pakistan has banned the celebration of Valentine's Day on the grounds that it is not part of Muslim culture. The order prohibits all Valentine's Day related festivities in public places. Valentine's Day is popular with many Pakistanis, but religious groups have protested against it in previous years, calling it immoral. Meanwhile, Belgium chocolate shops are so prepared for Valentine's Day that they have special offers for shoppers and their loved ones. Heart-shaped red and pink boxes and various kinds of chocolates-filled window displays in Brussels. Many chocolatiers, a supplier to Belgian royalty, sold 3 types of chocolate: roses, milk, dark and white chocolates to satisfy its customer taste. Now, according to the Belgium chocolate industry body, Choprabisco, the country's 256 chocolate makers provided jobs to over 7,000 people in 2014, representing almost 11% of jobs in the Belgian food production sector. It's all about spreading the love, isn't it? It's Valentine's Day, but we're asking you that question on our poll today. Is Valentine's Day part of your culture? Well, let's take a look at what you have to say on the poll. 54% of you are saying no. There's 283 votes in. 34% says they don't care about this thing called Valentine's Day. And only 12% on the continent of Africa say yes, Valentine's Day is part of our culture. Let's also take a look at what you have to say. Claudia says, culture is a way of life that is accepted by everyone. We all express love every day. So love is a culture, not just Valentine's Day being a culture. So says Claudia Sabola. Brales says, I don't care about it. Yesterday, I went out for a cigarette puff. When I came back to the house, there was 14 missed calls. Guess what? Is it about Valentine's? Sipo says, no, it's not. And I don't believe in it. Sorry to say, it's a wrong thing to celebrate as far as I know, so says Sipo. These are some of your comments. Some of you not very happy about this Valentine's Day. So how are you celebrating it today? Are you celebrating it with a loved one? You can also tweet us on that one. Let us know what's on your mind. Now, while many of you are getting geared up to celebrate Valentine's Day, whether it be with a loved one or for your life or perhaps a new date, there are calls for lovers to remember not to get overwhelmed by the paraphernalia of the day and practice safe sex. This, as South Africa still battles with a high rate of HIV and AIDS, this week marks International Condom Week. Now, we were joined from our Durban studios by the Country Program Director for AIDS Healthcare Foundation South Africa, Hilary Tulare.
I think it's important to remember that Valentine's is all about love. And if you love your partner, you want to protect them at all times. Mm-hmm. We are commemorating International Condom Day in conjunction with Valentine to remind partners, husbands, wives, girlfriends that they need to protect themselves and they need to protect their partners. But it's most important to note that the rate of infections in the country are rising, especially among young people. Your young girls, girls in schools and girls out of school. And we are trying to raise awareness with this commemoration, but also to remind young people that condoms are fashionable, but besides them being fashionable, they prevent unwanted pregnancies, they prevent STIs, including HIV. Mm-hmm. So I'm wearing a t-shirt today that is saying always in fashion, just to remind young people that it's fashionable to use a condom. They are accessible and they are free, especially in government institutions.
Talking about that, do we still have a stigma in our communities when it comes to wearing a condom? Do you find that often?
I think the South African government and NGOs have done a great job in promoting condom use. We saw the Deputy President of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, last year, launching the flavored condom. It is flavored with many colors, with many flavors, and the packaging is in many colors, purple, yellow, and that is attracting young people to use them, and the flavors especially. But NGOs like AIDS Healthcare Foundation are also distributing condoms that are packaged in very attractive packaging. My t-shirt has one of those packages. And we also have a condom called Icon Condom, which is black and gold and is more attractive to the male species. Mm-hmm. So the stigma is slowly going down. But the challenge that we are faced with, especially with the cuts from the Global Fund and USAID, is that if governments don't receive money or generate income to buy condoms, the work that we have done, you know, the steps that we have taken in the last 20 years to fight HIV will be fruitless. Mm-hmm. So as an organization, we want to raise awareness to say condoms are still needed and they are the means of protecting young people from getting infections, including HIV and AIDS.
Now, we believe that the demand for new flavored male condoms in Cape Town has basically outstripped the supplier's capacity there, so there's no more supplies, there's a shortage there. Does it show, though, that this new and improved condoms with the fancy colors and the lovely colors that they have provoke a change in some communities? And is there also a sense that we, as we head into this Valentine's Day, the sort of sense that people should wear more condoms?
I think the shortage is a sign that condoms are getting popular, especially the flavored condoms. And I'm not sure which part of Western Cape they have shortages, but what we know is that different provinces order enough condoms for distribution in their service points.
Yes.
I would encourage those service points to be in touch with their provincial offices to check if there are shortages or it's a logistical challenge. But if there are NGOs like ourselves in their areas that are distributing free condoms, they should contact them and get condoms. I think as partners with government, we try to curb any gaps.
Yes.
So if there's a condom shortage, we are there to supply those condoms. We also
Mr. Laurie, just very briefly, because we're running out of time, what is your advice for people moving into Valentine's Day?
Love your partner, love yourself, use condoms and use them consistently, not just tomorrow, but every day of your life, use condoms. Young people, it will prevent you from getting pregnant and unplanned pregnancies, prevent STIs and HIV, which we are fighting.
Well, there you have it, all about condoms and how you should use them on this Valentine's Day. They're flavored and they're colorful. Make sure that you don't eat them. Let's take a break. We'll be right back after that.
Now, this is Trends, of course, your one-stop serving of all that's juicy and trending in the world of entertainment and showbiz. My name, of course, is Refill Wemwilo.
I'm Dr. Sello Mutaung, and this is our talk.
A very good morning and welcome to Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jolly.
My name is Dumile Matez.
My name is Mpo Sedu. What time is it? It's question time. For your daily dose of current affairs, tune in to the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. My name is Kendall Makhamat. The time has just hit just before 20 to 12. Like tonight, we've got a single PSL match on the go. It's happening out in the Eastern Cape, in Mdantsane for that matter. And it's a match between the hosts, Chipa United and Mamelodi Sundowns. Mamelodi Sundowns have got an opportunity to go into the top three should they get a victory tonight. You will remember that they need to catch up with their log leaders who are currently sitting on 28 points. They've got 25 points, but they've got 19 goals to the good, which puts them in a very good position, prime position, I'd say, for a top three should they win against Chipa United tonight. Chipa United have chosen a more intimate stadium, Inamdansane, to see if they can put pressure with their fans on last year's defending champions. Kick-off at the Sisa Dugusha Stadium is at 7:30 p.m. Then tomorrow, 3 matches on the go. Bidvest Spits against Orlando Pirates, who have we've had their chairman come and speak to the media about exactly what he's got to say and apologizing to the media and the world for the conduct of the fans and also denouncing it as hooliganism. 7:30 kickoff, that's tomorrow at the James Mutlata Stadium. We've got Super Sport United against Free State Stars, Baroko FC against Platinum Stars at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium. And those are the matches between tonight and tomorrow night. Now, a new kid on the block in the African broadcast scene, Kwese Sports and American giants ESPN have signed a one-of-a-kind long-term deal to collaborate in an interesting matchup for African sports fans. Yesterday, I spoke to Phil Murphy, the host of ESPN's iconic Sports Center, a daily sports show broadcast in the United States, about this deal. I started by asking him what he saw it doing for the African sports fan, as well as the industry on the continent. This is what he had to say.
We want to be the one-stop shop for any sports fan who has any appetite for American sports. Now, we mentioned the partnership with Kwese Sports, and they're doing a fantastic job covering international sport, rugby, athletics, your passions, as well as F1 racing, international football. Now, we'll touch on those topics, but we're really relying on them for international sport coverage. What we're offering, specifically through SportsCenter, is fun, fast-paced recap of all the top stories in American sport. And then elsewhere on the ESPN channel, which launches March 8th, 4 p.m., we'll have thousands of hours of live coverage. We'll have studio shows that have had a lot of success in the States informing the American sport fan, like Pardon the Interruption, Around the Horn, names that African sports fans will become more familiar with over time, as well as documentary series with the 30 for 30, and then culminating every night, 8 p.m. Central Africa time, 7 days a week on SportsCenter.
Wow, sounds like you've got it planned out already. In fact, a question for you. Are you broadcasting already?
We are not yet. We launch March 8th. Now, Kwese and the Kwese bouquet, they have Kwese 1 and Kwese 2, and you'll see if you tune into those channels and those territories, they'll have NBA shows and international sports shows. I made some appearances on those in the last few days. They have live coverage overnight. And again, American sport, when it's broadcasting live in Africa, is starting about 10 p.m., maybe Central Africa time, and broadcasting through the night. So if you want to watch live, it's there. But they also have re-airs throughout the day. So whatever works with your schedule, Kwese has. But ESPN in particular, that channel launches March 8th, which is only about 3 weeks away.
No, it's not far at all. In fact, let's talk a little bit about the territories you just mentioned. You mentioned that there are some places where someone can catch some of the live sports, the live NBA, the live NFL. Which are the biggest territories that you know of already? Okay, so it's a robust list, so I do apologize to our partners at Kwese if I leave a few out. But it's 19 countries. It's Nigeria, it's Ghana, it's Democratic Republic of the Congo, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Senegal, Mozambique, Malawi, Angola, Namibia, Mauritius. I know I'm forgetting a big one there, but it's a very broad area, which is challenging because we know that different sport fans in those areas have different appetites for both international sport and American sport. But like I've said, on many airings and many television shows to this point, we hope to be the all-you-can-eat buffet for American sports. So whether your appetite is small or large, we want to be the place you go. Well, that said, I mean, some of the territories you've mentioned have various different languages. Yes. We've mentioned a couple of Portuguese-speaking, as well as French-speaking, as well as English-speaking territories, or countries, rather. Would you be broadcasting just in English? Would you be looking at doing simulcast in other languages as well?
To this point, we're broadcasting in English primarily. But again, international sport, if you're a live sport fan, I spent some time growing up living in Germany. I don't speak a word of German, but I was able to tune into the Bundesliga, follow it closely. Oh, yeah. Kaiserslautern in the late 90s was fantastic. That was my team. So the live sport element, I think, will have appeal to fans who maybe don't speak English or are learning English. But to be honest, I mean, you spent some time in Argentina yourself. Yeah. You know that watching sport in a foreign language can actually help you learn the language and grow familiarity with it. So yes, our studio shows will be in English. SportsCenter will be in English. But again, the live sports coverage, I think, has a particular appeal for fans who may not speak the language.
No, I can imagine not, because, I mean, basketball has taken root across the continent, yes. And regardless what language the player plays, they all understand and play the sport. A quick one that I want to check with you is that you'll be producing daily Sports Center updates for Africa.
Yes.
And how different will be the content, the content you're bringing through to Africa to what one can see in the States?
So the top American sport headlines are going to be the same. The Super Bowl just wrapped up. I was there doing some work for Kwesi there. But the big thing coming up after our launch is American college basketball. We call it March Madness. It's a 68-team tournament of all the best college basketball teams. So stateside, that is the biggest story going on. We're going to lead our show with that. It's going to be a big deal for the first month, especially the first month after launch. But we'll also touch on top international sport headlines and have elements, too, that may appeal to fans who are just starting to learn American sport.
All right, that's very interesting. Now, will fans that have been following you, specifically Phil Murphy, because I know a lot of people will watch Sports Center to try and pick up on one or two tricks and tips of how the trade is conducted in the States, and they would have picked up on you. Will they be able to see you in action every single day?
Starting off, yeah, I'll be working 7 days a week, so they'll get very used to me. And you know, if people have asked me, are you excited? Are you fearful? Because there are no off days. But this for me, SportsCenter is the standard in the U.S. in terms of broadcast journalism in sport. Yep. So it's an exciting opportunity. So yes, 7 days a week, 8 p.m. Central Africa time. Now I mentioned we have some live sport going on, and in the first month, the college basketball tournament actually will run into our show. So you know how live TV works. Yeah. Sometimes if a game goes to extra time or overtime, we may have to stray a little bit from that 8 p.m. start time, but that is our scheduled start time every night, 7 days a week, 8 p.m. And then at some point along the way, we'll have some other very talented anchors come in and fill in for me.
No sleep for you. Literally.
Yeah, I'll sleep a little bit. I'll take naps during the day. But for me, honestly, this is a huge passion of mine. I hope that comes across in the show, that I'm passionate about sport and passionate about international sport as well. So it's a cool partnership with Kwesi, them having the international side covered, us focusing on the American side, and really, again, appealing to sports fans, we hope, across Africa.
No, I think a lot of people can pick up on your passion just in this chat that we're having, as well as what they've seen of your work on YouTube as well. Those that are able to catch you in the States, they would know of that. That's why you've been doing this for like 7 years almost, isn't it?
I've been with ESPN for 7 years, and then I had about 4 or 5 years of experience that predated that. So for me, once I realized that sports broadcast was a realistic career opportunity, I jumped all over it. And then I was blessed enough in 2010 for ESPN to invite me up. And ESPN is the pinnacle, the touchstone of broadcast sport in the U.S. So I jumped at that, and I've been there for 7 years, focusing on American college football, mixed martial arts, so UFC fighting, a little bit of that, and just other elements with football as well. So I'm going to take that focus, bring it to SportsCenter, and then also just being an American sport fan, it's something I'll be able to speak to other sports as well.
No, very interesting. Like, how do you see traditional American sports taking root here? I know we know basketball is here already, but now let's look at something that's a little less easily understood. American football, for example. How do you see that taking root? I know in Nigeria there are 1 or 2 teams that are already taking shape there. Baseball itself has been there and thereabouts. I know there's a baseball club, for example, in Randburg, just down the road. Yeah. But how do you see traditional American sports taking root on the continent as for players to actually take part in?
We've already seen a measure of passion and knowledge from African sports fans. It's been really cool to see how these games have taken hold. I spoke to Emmanuel Acho, who plays in the NFL, and he goes back to Nigeria every year. He does some humanitarian work in some in-need communities there, and he said he's been blown away at how many football teams he's seen, American football teams he's seen grow and the sport expand. Now listen, I know everyone has their own sport palette, right? Some people are international football fans, cricket fans, what have you. We hope that whatever the appetite is, we can satisfy it. So if it's small or large, we hope to help make it grow, help inform, and entertain the fan. So I think there's absolute potential here. There are a lot of people who are well more adept on the business side of things than I, who have a lot of confidence that this will catch on and that there is an unfulfilled appetite there that we hope to appease.
There you have it, Phil Murphy from ESPN's Sports Center, giving you exactly what it is you can expect if you're out there in any of those territories across the continent that he mentioned, where you can catch up on everything that is American sports. That's where we'll leave it for today. I'll be back tomorrow morning, sharp 9 o'clock, with the rest of the team. Until then, listen.